Faites appel, s'il vous plaît, monsieur le greffier.
Monsieur le Saint Auguste.
Présent.
Monsieur le Saint
Le
Farnham.
gouvernement et la puissance de la terre.
Monsieur le Saint Farnham.
Pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple.
Présent.
D'avoir toujours conduit la gloire de ton saint nom.
Présent.
I wonder, we seem to be having some strange, I hesitate to call it interference in the circumstances, but Mr. Dean, we can hear the reading of the Lord's Prayer, the preamble of the prayer. And I just wondered if that's some sort of pre-recording or something of that nature, because obviously we're calling the first roll at the moment. We have an enormous echo.
Senator Farnham, I am present. I'm not sure if you received that.
I have now, Senator, thank you very much. Perhaps, Greffier, if we could call the roll again, start again.
Monsieur le Saint Auguste.
Présent.
Monsieur le Saint Farnham.
Présent.
Madame le Saint Ferguson.
Présente.
Monsieur le Saint Lafondre.
Présent.
Madame le Saint Valois.
Present.
Madame le Saint Moore.
Present.
Monsieur le Saint Pallet.
Présent.
Monsieur le Saint Mezec.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Hélier.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Present.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Sauveur. Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Gruville.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean. Monsieur le Connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Martin.
Present.
Madame le Deputy Martin.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy Southern.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy de Gruville.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy Lewis.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Tadier.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Higgins. Monsieur le Deputy Masson.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Pinel.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Martin.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Dublé.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy Labby.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Wickenden.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Truscott.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Young.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Ash.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Morel.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Guida.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Legra.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy Aye.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Pershard. Monsieur le Deputy Ward.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Alves.
Present.
Monsieur le Deputy Pamplin.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Gardner.
Present.
Citoyen?
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Thank you.
I can.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de la conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit que toute l'heure de l'opération est en accompagnée de la bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être et au soulagement du peuple, qu'il te plut de commettre à leur soi. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, Notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant, Notre Père,
Père,
qui est aux
qui es aux
cieux,
cieux,
ton nom soit sanctifié,
sanctifié,
ton règne
ton
vienne,
règne vienne,
ta volonté soit faite dans la terre comme au
comme
ciel.
aux cieux.
Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain
pain
quotidien
quotidien.
et nous pardonne nos
Pardonne nos
offenses
offenses,
comme nous pardonnons à
comme
ceux qui
ceux
nous
qui
ont
nous ont
offensés.
Français,
Et ne nous envoie point en
Point
tentation,
tentation,
mais
mais
délivre-nous
délivre-nous
du
du
mal.
mal.
Car à toi la
Toi,
reine,
Règne,
la puissance
puissance
de
et
la
la gloire,
la gloire.
au
au
siècle
siècle
des
des
siècles.
siècles. Amen.
Amen.
Madame la Connétable de Saint-Sever,
Excusez,
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean,
Present. I said present the first time, sir.
thank you, Tom Tubb.
Monsieur le Deputy Higgins,
Présent.
Madame la Deputy Pershard,
Excusez,
les états sont nombreux, Monsieur le Président.
les États sont constitués. I'm not sure if His Excellency has joined us this morning, but if he has, then of course we welcome him in the usual way. There are a number of subordinate enactments under B. A number of documents and matters have been presented or laid in the consolidated order paper under section C and under section D. The following matters have been lodged. Encroachments on the foreshore revised policy P111 amendment to the amendment lodged by the Minister for Infrastructure. Encroachments on the foreshore revised policy P112 second amendment lodged by the Minister for Infrastructure. Migration Control Policy P137 second amendment lodged by Deputy Pershard. Migration Control Policy P137 second amendment lodged by the Chief Minister. Migration Control Policy P137 third amendment lodged by the Migration and Population Review Panel. Improvements to Road Safety P5 amendment lodged by the Minister for Infrastructure. Improvements to Road Safety P5 second amendment lodged by Senator Ferguson. Draft States of Jersey Police Force Amendment number 3 law P10 lodged by the Minister for Home Affairs, and minimum wage increase P11 lodged by Deputy Southern. The following have been withdrawn. Migration Control Policy P137 Amendment lodged by Deputy Pershard, and the Migration Control Policy P137 Third Amendment lodged by the Migration Review and Population Review Panel. There is nothing under F, G or H. We come to questions. There are of course a number of answers tabled to written questions, and I have been asked to make a ruling in connection with one of those. Deputy Higgins has raised with me the written answer to question 61. I have considered this, and it seems to me that the question asks for funding allocations from 3 sources of funds. The first is the government plan or budget, the second is the Criminal Offences Confiscation Fund, and the third is the any other special purpose fund. And the answer deals with the Criminal Offences Confiscation Fund and says that there is no other funding from other special purpose funds, but no answer is given in connection with the government plan or budget category of expenditure, and therefore a further answer will need to be provided to address that particular point.
Thank you, sir.
Very well. We come now to oral questions. And the first question will be asked by Deputy Pamplin of the Minister for Children and Housing. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. I hope everyone's well. Will the Minister update the Assembly on the impact, if any, that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the commitment made to address the recommendations of the Independent Jersey Care Inquiry and its follow-up report in 2019?
So I believe the order's gone through and I'm taking it. It's Deputy Massel here.
Yes, thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for his question. The commitment to the recommendations of the care inquiry as laid out in P08 of 2017 haven't changed, and therefore the commitment is still there. Of course, various work streams have been delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, I'm pleased to say that some other work streams have still managed to progress despite this. The Deputy will be aware of the progress being made by the Youth Parliament. And of course, I believe last week I was able to announce the e-learning module on the United Nations Rights of the Child, which has been rolled out across the states government for states members and for staff. There are other work streams which will be coming to the Assembly this year, sir. So I hope that gives comfort to the Deputy that the commitment remains.
Dr. Mantle, Deputy.
Yes, thank you, sir, and I thank the new Minister for his answer. I am more interested in what has delayed. Can the Minister address the first part of his answer there and give us an outline of what work has been delayed and what extra work and effort will be put in place to get that back on track? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, as you know, there are about 8 different work streams coming from the care inquiry as well as the follow-up report. So, for example, things that will be coming to the Assembly are around things like the Corporate Parenting Board, where there'll be a framework in order to give duties on the states and ministers, for example, and establish that in a firm legislative framework. That, of course, has been delayed, but we are pressing through with that. We know, for example, there are other aspects such as the indirect incorporation of the UNCRC, which again has been delayed, but we are now getting that back on track. And you know, I'm happy to write further to the Deputy if he's got any specifics which he's concerned about.
Senator Mesick.
Thank you, sir. When it comes to recommendation 7 from the Independent Jersey Care Inquiry, can the Minister tell the Assembly whether he considers the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic a greater risk to fulfilling recommendation 7, or is the greater risk the political commitment to fulfill it from his ministerial colleagues?
Thank you, sir. One of the key ways in addressing recommendation 7, the Jersey Way, is to progress the public sector's ombudsman. We had that debate through an amendment in the government plan last year, and the amendments were successful, and that work is progressing. So there is work going forward on that particular recommendation.
Supplementary, please, sir. Of course, that was not the only part of recommendation 7. There was substantially more to it than that. Does the Minister feel any confidence that his government colleagues understand the seriousness of addressing recommendation 7 and the Jersey Way, and does he believe that he will have the full support of government ministers when it comes to implementing its recommendations, not least, of course, the recommendation on the separation of powers, which is fundamental?
Thank you, sir. There have been several debates in the States Assembly because the care inquiry recommended further consideration of these types of matters, and the Assembly itself has continued to consider this particular aspect. I know, for example, previous chief ministers have brought propositions to the Assembly and the current one, which ultimately have been unsuccessful. So this matter will continue until the Assembly is able to resolve the matter.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, regards recommendation 6 around corporate parenting, can I ask the Minister what his view is and what he sees as the notion of corporate parenting and what it means to us, and what has progressed in this area to enable this recommendation to be enacted upon? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Yes, so this manifests itself in the I think it's the Corporate Parenting Board. Yeah, the Corporate Parenting Board And the aspect around that will be that there is work, legislation coming to the Assembly to put that on a statutory footing. And of course, that is about putting responsibilities and duties on members and officers within the government. So things like a duty to disclose, all those types of things will be wrapped up in that legislation, which will be coming forward.
Supplementary, sir?
Yes, Deputy.
Does the Minister have a date for that legislation, and can he summarise how that will improve the safety of our children and ensure that our children are genuinely put first, as the government has claimed to do?
Thank you, sir. I don't have a date with me today, but I'm happy to respond to the Deputy with those types of more detailed questions.
This question from Deputy Tadier, then the final supplementary, and then we'll have no more questions. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. The care inquiry had quite a lot to say about the lack of affordable housing for children in relation to poverty and creating a precarious situation, which was not helpful for children and families. Despite the state's decision in 2018 to end the discrimination against children being able to be part of a family renting private property in Jersey, the decision still hasn't been brought forward by his colleague, the Social Security Minister. Will the new Minister for Children be putting pressure on his fellow colleague to make sure that this is brought to fruition so that recommendations can be brought forward in a timely fashion?
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his question. As he says, I believe this is a work stream which in the government plan is due to be worked on by the Social Security Minister this year. And I'm happy to take the Deputy's point away and have discussions with my colleague in order to accelerate that if needed.
And so would the new Children's Minister give an undertaking to actually make sure that this happens? He is the Children's Minister, and if at the end of this term this piece of work isn't done, then I think it reflects badly on him and the whole of his government.
Thank you, sir. I'm more than happy to talk to the Social Security Minister because I believe it's the legislation that sits under her, under the discrimination law. And so I can't give a commitment if something is subject to the approval or rejection of the Assembly. But of course, you know, I'm happy to work with my colleague, Deputy Martin, in order to bring that to the Assembly for debate.
Final supplementary, Deputy Franklin.
Thank you, sir. So returning to my original question, with the things that are delayed by the pandemic, will the Minister be looking at extra resources and funding to ensure certain things will be achieved in the last year of this political term, including CAMS, which is part of his remit? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There's actually quite a considerable amount of resource to these various work streams in the government plan. It is about making sure that officers have the time, because now that a lot of the pandemic issues are obviously relaxing, it just means that there is manpower in order to progress different things such as the legislation. And as for the matter of CAMS, I can definitely give the Deputy the assurance that is now a standing item on my Children's Minister's agenda. And we also now have the Deputy of St John's appointed to the team who specifically has responsibility for CAMS. The Deputy is absolutely right. We know that mental health across the board has obviously been largely increased due to the pandemic, etc., etc. So yes, this is a big issue, which is definitely on one of the highest parts of my radar. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Coming now to question 2 that Deputy Higgins will ask of the Attorney General. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will Her Majesty the Attorney General advise members which personal body has legal responsibility for the oversight of the State of Jersey Police in cases where claims are made that the police have either failed to undertake an investigation into a criminal allegation or have failed to investigate it properly? And will he further state who is legally accountable when it's found that the police have failed to investigate a crime properly?
Mr. Turner.
Thank you, sir. Sir, under the State of Jersey Police Force Law, the States of Jersey Police have operational independence, and the chief officer of the police is a corporation sole. In those circumstances raised by the deputy, a complaint could be made against the investigating officer or officers under the Police Complaints and Discipline Law of 1999, and if appropriate, disciplinary action could be taken against the officers involved, and the sanctions include dismissal. But secondly, sir, in the UK, it's recently become possible to bring proceedings against a police force under the Human Rights Act, where there has been a failure to investigate serious violent crime, and that can be shown to amount to a breach of the victim's human rights. And the leading case on that is very recent. It's a claim against the Commissioner of the Police for the Metropolis, and it concerns some victims of John Warboys, who was a black cab driver who raped many women over a period of years. And the Supreme Court in that case held that the police have a duty to investigate serious violent crimes, which arguably amount to a breach of a person's Article 3 rights under the ECHR. So in areas where Jersey law is similar to English law, such as this one, the Supreme Court decisions are of the highest persuasive authority in Jersey. So in theory, therefore, the Human Rights Jersey Law 2000 could permit similar claims to be brought here. But I would stress that this is a new area of law, both in the UK and obviously in Jersey. So it remains to be seen how or whether the principles of this case will be applied in the Jersey courts. Thank you, sir.
Yes, supplemental, Deputy.
Yes, sir. Could the Attorney General tell us the role of the police authority with regard to overseeing police, and whether they have a role in ensuring that investigations are carried out and are investigated properly?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's correct, sir. The Jersey Police Complaints Authority has duties under the Police Force Law of 1999, accompanying regulations to supervise and monitor complaints against the police. So it will check whether the investigation has properly been conducted.
Very much. Very well. We come to question 3 that Deputy Gardiner will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy Gardiner.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise what plans, if any, the government has to introduce or enhance legislation in the island regarding online safety, including measures to address cyber abuse, cyberbullying and trolling?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. So Jersey has legislation in place that addresses cyber abuse, including cyberbullying, and the police consider they have the powers to prosecute where appropriate. This legislation was updated in 2016 to ensure it remained fit for purpose in light of rapidly evolving technology and consumer behaviour. And so I hope all members, however, will join me and will join everybody in roundly condemning the abuse that's been received by both the Deputy and other members. But the Deputy will also be aware that Deputy St Peter has proactively been looking at this area, and the preliminary conclusion of his work is that everyone, including the police, potential victims and potential offenders, could benefit from greater clarity regarding what is legal or illegal, the recourse victims have and the consequences perpetrators could face. I'm therefore in the process of instructing officers to work in consultation with the police and the Law Enforcement Department to put in place new guidance designed to offer greater clarity and certainty and therefore greater protection to offenders. Separately, members will also be aware of the work commissioned by myself, which is presently being set up and will be led by Deputy Pershard, specifically on social media and young people, which will proceed parallel to this area, sir.
Supplementary?
Yes, Deputy.
In the cyber world, a verifiable record of the abuse or bullying exists, which not always exist in the world of normal conversation or dialogue. Why it is so much more difficult to enforce laws in the virtual world?
So I think we're getting to a legal area, which is definitely not my area of expertise. So I'm not too sure I'm particularly qualified to answer that question, other than I believe, and this is my guess, that it may very much depend on the jurisdiction and where the data is held. I would imagine it's at least one area that requires clarity within the laws. But as I said, sir, the advice we've had to date, and that's why what the piece of work that obviously Deputy Peter has recently undertaken is that we give put in place some greater guidance, which does offer greater clarity and certainty to islanders. In other words, enabling them to understand their rights and the abilities that they can do under our existing laws, sir.
Very well, I have questions noted from 4 other members, then a final supplementary, so I won't take any more after that. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Given the disproportionate impact of many of these crimes on women, including revenge pornography, which, as I understand, is currently covered by the telecommunications law, but not sufficiently covered. But given these disproportionate impacts, will the Chief Minister ensure that the work in this area takes a gender-sensitive approach, please?
Chief Minister.
Sir, as far as I'm concerned, all bullying in this area is reprehensible, and therefore, sir, all bullying all those areas should be treated with the appropriate levels of sensitivity.
Supplementary, Deputy Doublé.
Yes, please, sir. Does the Chief Minister agree that I think he needs to go and look up the term gender sensitive, because from my point of view, it's not acceptable that that response is still being given, given the moving on of understanding of such terms. And would the Chief Minister perhaps look at that term and then come back to me with an answer?
So the point I'm making is that, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care what gender, trait or anything else that anybody is displaying if they are being bullied. I'm not going to discriminate in that area. As far as I'm concerned, sir, bullying in terms of the social media side that we see particularly is reprehensible. And I therefore take the point, sir, it doesn't matter who is on the receiving end of it. If it causes the damage that we refer to, sir, then it should be condemned. And if there are further things we can be doing on that area, we should be doing that, sir. What I said, sir, is that it should be treated sensitively according to individual circumstances. And I take the point the Deputy is making. The point I'm also making, sir, is that I think it is a wide issue that is shared by many members of the community. And therefore, that is what we need to be focusing on, sir, is in an appropriately sensitive way. I do accept the point that the Deputy has made, but equally, sir, I'm also making the point that whether it's male or female, that the recipient, if the cyberbullying is of such a level that it causes the damage it causes, then we should be looking at overall the damage and harm that it causes, sir. That's it.
Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. It's almost following on from my last question to the Attorney General. We have had trolls for years, some vicious, some who've threatened people's lives, some who have tried to interfere with the employment of people that they've gone after or their family. And yet they've been reported to the States of Jersey Police, and the States of Jersey Police have done nothing. One infamous troll claimed that he had protection.
I'm sorry, Deputy. You've spent at least 30 seconds setting out general statements, and you haven't reached a question. There are a number of members who wish to ask, and we are time limited on each question.
I think a big question, and I will ask the question,
please.
Will the Chief Minister speak with the police and find out why they have not been using the law that they've got and pursuing these individuals up to now? Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
So I'm very happy to identify where the decisions to charge or to prosecute have not been pursued. But sir, and that is actually, sir, one option, for example, would be to request the relevant authorities put in place some guidance on the decisions to prosecute, for which, for example, I understand there are examples, for example, relating or already existing, for example, in relating to domestic abuse. There are also some international examples specifically relating to social media, including UK criminal prosecution services, guidance on prosecuting cases involving communications sent via social media. So my understanding is that officers have consulted with the States of Jersey Police and law officers, and who agree that guidance would be a useful and effective approach. And I think that's the initial approach that we would like to take. But after that, if there's further work that needs to be done, I'm very happy to certainly direct, for example, the Deputy St. Peter to expand the work in that area, sir.
Dr. Ventral, Deputy?
No, sir, that's fine, as long as some action is taken.
Thank you very much. Senator Mesek.
Thank you, sir. Does the Chief Minister agree that in clear cases where online communications are made which contain a clear threat of violence, and where there's a police statement from the perpetrator admitting that it was them, that a prosecution should take place? And if he doesn't agree with that, could he explain what he thinks the point of the law is?
As a principle, so the reason I'm pausing is because decisions to prosecute and to charge, which may be feel blindingly obvious to us as politicians, may be less blindingly obvious to the people who actually have to carry out those prosecutions and charges in terms of the legal backing they have, which is why I've made reference to the issues around guidance as a starting point. But equally, sir, in fact, I believe we have a debate coming up around, well, I can't remember the exact article, sir, in the States of Jersey law. I've got 43 in my head, but I think that's the wrong, which does refer, sir, to blackmail and corruption, sir, and essentially on the existing article in there, which is mainly about people threatening and coercing state members or officers of the states to carry out certain things. And I've always felt, sir, that that is quite a wide article as a non-lawyer, and I've always wondered whether that has ever been used in anger or not, because it's been there for a very, very long time. But I think that's is where we need then to go into the issues around the guidance. But as a principle, sir, where we have, it does seem to me, sir, that not only states members, but other members of the public, when they're on the receipt of such abuse the way that the Senator has outlined, do not seem to have had very much recourse in the past. And there is always this balance, we know, between freedom of speech, but equally bullying and worse, that I think we are seeing more and more of within the social media sphere. And that's partly as social media has expanded to fill the virtual world. So.
Supplementary, sir.
Supplementary, yes. Thank you, sir. Would the Chief Minister agree that when there are such clear cases with admissions from the perpetrators, but still no prosecutions taking place, that it sends out a message that in fact that sort of behaviour is acceptable, and public officials will continue to have to put up with unacceptable behaviour and put off good people from going into public service, so long as people aren't held accountable for their actions?
Let's be very clear. I agree vehemently with the second half of what the Senator has just said, because I think it does put people off in terms of the level of abuse that is sometimes received by people in public service. And as I said, in terms of the first part, sir, the decision to prosecute is obviously not a political one, and that's why I'm being very cautious about not interfering in that area. But equally, it needs to be very clear that in today's world, it is not acceptable, sir.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, given that we've recently taken on much more online work and people's workplaces have gone into their homes, does he see an increasing issue, for example, for teachers and lecturers who have taken the classroom into their home and have more online contact with parents, where they may face abuse or bullying? And what does he feel should happen in order to protect that section of the workforce? Thank you, sir.
Sir, it's the reason I paused again, sir. I'm a bit loath to focus specifically on a specific part of the workforce over and above anybody else. I think the principles, though, sir, where we already have physical notices around in the physical world where we say that abuse to members of staff is not tolerated, and all those type of signs that people see. I think that means that there's an education program further, which now needs to start going into the virtual world. As I said, I think the first step on that from officer advice that we have received is to basically put guidance out that does then start covering these type of areas, sir. But equally, I think what the Deputy has said in terms of the blending between the virtual and the physical world, i.e. The workplace coming into the home and vice versa, as it were, is causing issues, particularly in the context of the pandemic and the strains that it's putting on households, relationships and mental health, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Just quickly, sir, I mean, there seems to be a move to more working online and at home, and I'd just like the Chief Minister to commit to ensuring that any legislation that comes through addresses those issues to protect people who are taking their workplace into their home. That's all. Thank you, sir.
As I said, the first starting point for me is to get guidance out in the right place where people know what can and cannot be done in terms of their rights, and hopefully then also, sir, reminding people and starting an education program which is actually pointing out that many people would not say to your face what they are very frequently keen to put on the keyboard, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to thank Chief Minister for him taking it forward to the guidelines and identifying why the complaints not going to the prosecution, because the public perception is extremely important. I would like also to check if aspect of cyber abuse, cyberbullying and trolling would be included in the hate crime legislation that it's currently being drafted.
So I'm not cited on the hate crime legislation in terms of the specific areas that the deputies referred to. I'll very happily go away and determine the position. As I said, the overall view is that apparently the legislation is broadly fit for purpose, but it's actually that there's already in existence, but it's actually the guidelines in terms of decisions to prosecute, outlining the areas that I've already covered in relation for things like, i.e. the processes that are already in place for areas, for example, like domestic abuse, and that's really the starting point. But if it was felt that legislative change needs to be made, very happy to look at that. I do make the point, and it is really, really difficult, this, and I have to keep reminding myself, it's personally sometimes as well, is we have to make sure we have the balance between genuine and legitimate free speech, at which point some people do get heated, versus online abuse. And sometimes those lines can get somewhat blurred, but we have to make sure we don't react the other way and be seen to be trampled on people's basic rights of freedom of speech. And that's something we've got to keep in our minds all the way through, even though it can be really, really difficult at times. But as I said, first step is look at the guidance there and see what else needs to be updated.
After question 4, the Deputy Southern will ask the Minister for Social Security. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Is it the Minister's assessment that her response to written question 54 of 2021 shows that the most basic components of income support have not matched inflation of 16% over the period 2014 to 2021? And will she explain how the statement that average claims increased by 18% is consistent with the concept of effective indexing?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his question. Written questions 9 and 54 provide full details of all the income support component rates between 14 and 21. These answers show the increase in component rates varies across different components. It is correct that some of the components in this are below 16%. For other components, the increase is above 16%. As explained, the written question As explained in both written questions, the amount of income support received depends on the level of income disregards as well as component rates. Between 14 and 21, income disregards have increased from 20% to 26%. The overall impact of all these changes to income support over this time means that the average income support claim has increased from £218 a week to £257 per week. This is an increase of 18% in the value of the average claim. It is the combination of increases in component rates, income disregards that ensures that the income support claim values continue to support low income families effectively. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Supplementary, if I may, sir.
Yes.
Is it not the case that the 18% increase she quotes is not comparing like with like, and therefore is misleading in the fact that what's occurring is that the rental cap, the rental component cap, has increased enormously by almost 30% over this period, and that's why the level of benefits appears to have increased by so much.
So I'm not even sure that this does include the rental component, but the deputy's right. There's been massive increases in rental components, which is all money paid to the income support family.
True, not true. It goes directly to the landlord.
No, I'm sorry, Deputy. This can't be an exchange. We have to allow the Minister the chance to answer, and then if.
Well, and I was going to come on to that. Me and the deputy have a different a view on £300 a week that goes directly to the landlord. If it wasn't being paid by the income support scheme, the person would be paying that out of their wages. So it is money going to the family that they don't have to find. So I really don't understand. The deputy's right, we're comparing apples and pears. I'm probably pears, sir.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. So can I ask the Minister, would you concede that the larger proportion of income support increase that goes directly to landlords means that the direct living standards of those who are claiming income supports does drop because they are not seeing any of that money? And in fact, the only people benefiting from that increase are landlords.
No, sir, I don't agree with that. From 14 to 21, the disregards, and the disregard is not just earned income, it's maintenance income and pensionable income, all have received more money. The reintroduction of the income, the single parent allowance, and then the introduction in 19 of the £10, which was a full payment in 20. It was £5 in April 19 and £5 in October, but a full £10 for the first child, which is 22%. So the majority of people are better off by the 18% that I've quoted. Thank you.
Supplemental, Deputy Ward.
So can I ask the Minister how much she feels is a reasonable amount of increase that goes directly to landlords or of public money? And would she consider that she would cap rents with income support in some sort of negotiation with landlords so that so much public money isn't going directly to them?
Oh, I absolutely would like to have discussions with landlords and try and cap rents. The problem is I'm trying to keep up with what the landlords are charging for the people on income support. And that's what we've tried to do. And that's why some of the components in the rent have gone up by 34% over those 6 years, because otherwise people would be taking the money out of their other components that they need to live on each week. So there is work to be done. I don't disagree with the Deputy. I'd rather not be paying over £30 million a year in rent subsidies, but that's what we do. Thank you.
I have a question from Deputy Tadier, Deputy Higgins, and then a final supplementary, Deputy Southern. No more questions. Deputy Tadier.
The Minister said she'd like to cap rents in the private sector. What does she mean by that, and how would she do it?
Well, there is the million-dollar question. How would I cap rents in the private sector? I've been in this assembly over 20 years, sir, and it's one of the big elephants in the room is rent. It's a massive amount of people's income, whether that's earned income or income support income. I can work, and I work very well with the new housing minister. I don't know how it will be done. Again, it comes down to supply and demand. Thank you, sir.
So supplementary, does the Minister agree that actually capping rents is very simple? We have an income support component which we allow for accommodation, and we could simply say that is the cap for the private sector, but it takes political will to do that. Is there the political will from this minister to actually cap rents in the first place?
Sorry, the deputy's asking me, sir, would I cap the income support amount paid out to the rent?
No, that's not
do
the
that.
question.
I can do tomorrow. That's exactly what the deputy asked me, sir. I can cap the rent paid out tomorrow. It doesn't mean the rent won't go up. Well, I heard that as the question, sir, and you said we shouldn't be interacting. The deputy's not letting me finish.
Getting into Alice of Wonderland here.
I'm sorry that you've asked a supplementary question.
She's answered a question completely different that she's chosen.
Well, I'm sorry that
well, I'm sorry,
we're
sir,
already past the time allocated for this question. The minister answers in the way the minister feels that the question has to be answered. The consequence of not answering it in the way you feel it should be must be political in nature. It's up to the minister how she hears the question, how she answers it. Minister, had you concluded your answer?
Yeah, and I apologise to the deputy because I thought the deputy said, can I cap the rent payment tomorrow? I can. That doesn't help the tenants, and it does. And sorry if I misheard.
That's not the question, sir. I can ask the question if she wants.
No, I'm sorry.
So can I have a point of order here?
Yes.
Because there has to be a limit here. If somebody asks a question and says, what colour is the roof of Fort Regent, and then someone goes to give an answer saying GST is 5%, it needs an intervention from the chair, because that's not the question. We're wasting all our time here. That happens with a written question. Now, I asked a clear question, sir, about whether she would be prepared to cap rents in the private sector that landlords can charge. She didn't answer that.
Well, if that's your question, then I'll give the minister the opportunity to answer that question. The question is, would you be prepared to cap rents in the private sector?
And that is not in my gift. I can't cap rents in the private sector. The only thing I have control of is what we pay for rents. And sorry if I misheard the deputy. I thought he said, could I cap the payment tomorrow? So it's not in my gift, sir. And that's the answer.
Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. The minister said she's paying £30 million a year in rent subsidy. When is she actually going to be campaigning and getting her colleagues to campaign for a proper living wage to enable people to pay their own rents without having to go to the States cap in hand to get support?
Well, income support on the living wage would still probably need some subsidy. Again, this is a massive picture of living wage, the minimum wage, how many people would pay it, how many people can pay it. That is always the question. So at the moment, that's what we pay out, and it is a lot of money, a very lot of money. It's probably, last year it was 30 million, it's probably gone up, sir.
Supplementary,
yes.
The minister has been in the States for far longer than I can remember, and she's campaigned on these issues. Now she's a minister. When is she going to do something to try and deal with these problems, which she's complained about for years?
And the deputy's been with me in this assembly, is probably not far behind me, sir. And it's not as easy as the deputy says. We go out for consultation on the minimum wage, and it goes to lots of industries, and they come back and say this industry, and it's always been proven, some of the industries that have been asked to put the minimum wage, and that's the minimum wage, sir, not the living wage, have gone out of business, or they have stopped doing things that they did do, and then they don't employ as many staff. So it's sort of a defeat, you're not achieving what you want to achieve.
Final supplementary, Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. Will the minister accept that indexing has not been matching the increase in inflation over this period, and will she act to make sure that proper indexing takes place from now on?
So I don't agree that it's not matched indexing, because the deputy is, as I said, comparing different aspects of income support. When you take it all together, the actual money in the person's pocket and the average family has gone up. Thank you, sir.
Question 5, Senator Messick will ask for the Minister for Children and Housing. I beg your pardon, the Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise what measures, if any, the government will propose to ensure that the decade-long freeze in real terms earnings that islands have suffered since the last financial crash do not continue through to the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, thank you, sir. Sir, we must remember that we are still in a pandemic, which has actually been one of the most seismic shocks the world has suffered in decades. So it has caused unprecedented disruption to our economy, as it has to economies around the world. And I think, again, emphasising, sir, we are not alone. We have hugely supported Irelanders' lives and livelihoods through a variety of measures during COVID. And in fact, sir, real-term earnings for the last reported period, which is the last 12 months to June of last year, do actually show an increase in real-term earnings, sir. But overall, which I hope answers the Senator's question, as I said, we've put a package of measures in place to ensure the economy can recover quickly and to try to reduce any permanent economic impacts. And going forward, the focus will be on supporting increases in productivity and on the wider work of our Future Economy programme. And a lot of that in terms of funding, sir, was floated in the government plans, sir. So the financing for measures, sir, is already been approved by the Society.
Very much. Supplemental, Senator.
I mean, wow, sir. I mean, that answer barely touched upon my question. I thought my question was quite clear. At the last financial crash, the decade afterwards, Islanders, by and large, were no better off than they were beforehand. I'm asking if that's going to be the same after this health crisis, not during the crisis, after it. Are we going to plan to end up in a situation after this crisis where we can look forward to 10 years of life getting better in the island? I'd hope that would be something the Chief Minister would on principle want to commit to. So will he commit to at least seeking to learn the lessons from the last decade where successive governments failed to deliver better lives for Islanders? And if he does want to commit to that aspiration, could he give us a vague indication at the very least of what policies he might want to see enacted so life does get better and people do become more prosperous and able to enjoy their lives, rather than see another wasted decade of real terms earnings freeze?
So, whilst I like the fact that the Senator sometimes loves the politics, sir, I did actually split the answer into two parts. One is what we have been doing, sir, and the other part is saying that we are putting a package of measures in place, and that's the financing of that has already been approved in the government plan. So in answer there, sir, have we got measures in place to ensure that real earnings do increase, sir? Yes, sir, on the basis that the big focus, for example, is on improving productivity, and the various measures that we've been putting in place, and for example, as the Senator should be aware, the reduction in Social Security rates, which obviously doesn't affect productivity, but does put extra money in people's pockets, has been implemented for a number of months and will continue for a number of months, and it will be 9 months in total. That is a very real and direct impact on people's pockets and making them feel better off already. So the future of for the economy, which is also about maintaining and hopefully improving people's wages, is partially around infrastructure support, which obviously as a government we are putting in place. That's why some of the big capital programs which are shovel ready, for example, the office strategy, can actually be released hopefully on time, sir, preserving and protecting people's jobs and hopefully maintaining their employment, sir. In overall terms, the reason I made the point that we had the financial crash, as we know, we've had the impact of the pandemic. We are not alone, but we are all putting measures in place, sir. And yes, the short answer is we do want to see people coming out of this and seeing a return to what I will call better prosperity than they may have seen before. That will probably take some time, sir, but yes, that is the objective of this government.
Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. Does the Chief Minister accept that postponing social security contributions for a short while does nothing for productivity?
I think I said that in my answer, sir, and it is not postponing, sir. On these particular ones for individuals, sir, they have been essentially the rate has been lowered, sir. It's not postponement, it is a permanent payment that has been made to all working Islanders.
Supplementary, Deputy Sutton.
The supplementary is, and what concrete action will have any impact on productivity that he suggests?
So I think I made the point so that wasn't about productivity. I said that was about putting money indirectly into people's.
Well, Deputy Ward. I then have a question from Senator Moore, and then there'll be final supplementary. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. So may I ask the Chief Minister, we're returning to the question of building back after the COVID pandemic. On the debate on recovery, the living wage featured throughout from many politicians across the political spectrum. Would the Chief Minister commit to a living wage as we try to rebuild better?
So the only difference, I believe, between, as far as I'm aware, all but certainly most of the council ministers and the deputy is purely around timing, sir. That we do all want to see a move eventually to the living wage, but equally is making sure that as we allow businesses to come out of the economic shock they have suffered, sir, over the last 12 months, it's about the timing and not crippling them in a financial way, sir, as they emerge hopefully back into the sunlight of better economic times. But in terms of the principle, I think, sir, the Council Ministers has already made that commitment. It is purely about the timing, sir.
Deputy Ward, supplemental.
Yes, sir. Would the Chief Minister not agree that what the people of Jersey want after this pandemic is some political leadership that says we will rebuild better, and we won't rebuild as a low-wage, low-skill economy, but that of a skilled, high-wage economy where people have their dignity in their work to live the type of lives that will be productive and add back to our economy. And part of that is a living wage, and part of that is a political commitment from our government. So I ask the Chief Minister to make that political commitment and not vagaries. Thank you, sir.
So I don't like the fact when people talk about vagaries. What I've always learnt, sir, is not to commit to a particular date when we are in the middle of a pandemic and don't know the exact timing when we're going to come out of it, and therefore know the exact economic circumstances that we will be facing. I also do rather challenge as to whether we're a low wage and low skill economy. So I think we have a lot of skills on the island. But in terms of the the people of the island want to see from the government leadership. They have seen leadership. We didn't get to this state in the pandemic by accident, and I think we've made that point before. And so we have put plans in place about long-term thinking and about long-term planning to come out of this. Part of that is around releasing infrastructure projects. That was approved by the Assembly in the last government plan. Part of that is around the future economic programmes, which Senator Farnham is charged with, and part of that is around new industries, for example, the cannabis work that is going on, and part of that is around improving productivity. And again, we're keeping Senator Farnham fairly busy on that front, which he is obviously enjoying immensely, sir. But that is the focus for the government as we come out of the pandemic and as we recover from the very tough times that we've had previously.
Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. Following up on the Chief Minister's comment in relation to the potential for major infrastructure projects to benefit jobs and employment, it would be helpful if the Chief Minister could demonstrate what evidence there is that there is a shortage of local jobs at this stage in the local construction industry, as it is well known that in many instances businesses have to bring in people from outside of the island in order to maintain demand in the construction area, and therefore, in answering the question, he could demonstrate what benefits there will be to wages in this area and in other areas, as Senator Mezek asked in his original question.
So I didn't quite get all the ramifications of the Senator's quite wide-ranging question there, sir. But in terms of do the infrastructure projects support local businesses and local jobs, sir? Obviously, there will be times when there is specialism required, but in general, sir, the construction industry is very much comprised of residents, and the businesses obviously generate profits on island, sir. So it is about maintaining the confidence within that industry and giving them certainty in providing a chain of construction projects, and that's where government has a significant role, sir, and that's where sometimes delay, sir, can cause issues. And I believe indeed at least one of the larger construction firms was talking about the consequence of delays on 2 or 3 of the projects that they originally had planned for. So obviously when construction projects come through, sir, and companies bid for those projects, they essentially line up all the local subcontractors and make sure they have them earmarked to start on an approximate date, subject to the usual kind of planning processes and preparation processes. And that's where so they need a degree of certainty and not sudden changes in projects which have long been in the pipeline, sir. And that's what I would like to try and give that industry, sir, that degree of certainty if we can, because otherwise at that point, sir, jobs actually get threatened rather than supported.
Supplementary.
Yes, indeed.
I think the answer there does get to the heart of the political point here, which is that the Chief Minister prefers to focus on profit, and the original question is about earnings and wages and how people can live on the earnings and wages that they receive through work. Does the Chief Minister perhaps identify some other industries and areas where specific work could be done to ensure greater profitability and sharing of that profit to increase wages? And does he have any policy ideas that could achieve that?
So again, I'm afraid there are quite a lot of questions in there. I think the point I would pick up on is I actually said jobs as well as profits, and I'm surprised that the Senator doesn't realise that if a business doesn't make a profit, it can't provide the jobs, which obviously the jobs give the earnings that we've all been talking about.
And final supplementary, Senator Mezek.
Question, sorry. The question wasn't answered, sir. It was identifying other areas where greater profitability could help to support jobs and wages.
Are you able to answer that question?
I will give a very simple analogy, sir, that once interest rates eventually go up, so which is obviously completely out of our control, that will generate greater profits, no doubt, increase and will significantly improve productivity, sir. Other than that, sir, there are, which is obviously outside of our control, but I would hope that was a very simple example for the Senator to understand. But equally, sir, as I've already identified, one area where we are improving what we believe will be productivity, because that will be profits, it will be salaries, and relative to the number of employees will be, for example, the piece of work that Senator Farnham has been working on about cannabis production that has great potential to bring a new stream of income both into the island and into the tax revenues of this government, and therefore money for the Assembly to direct at various times. Other than that, sir, there are a variety of measures that we are dealing with, including the fiscal stimulus measures, which are likely the first stage of which is going to be announced quite imminently, sir, and obviously the economic support measures, which, as I said, comes through the Future Economy Programme, which is being worked on at the moment and will be announced later on during the year, but which the funding for which has been approved in the government plan and no doubt was scrutinised by the Senator's panel.
Senator Mezek, final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. The aim of this question will be to try to get the Chief Minister to finally answer with something relevant to the question, because every time this line of questioning is pursued, he trots out a load of things that are frankly irrelevant. He spoke about the social security cut. Unless that's permanent, it doesn't affect real terms earnings. He talked about productivity. Unless that comes with wage increases, it's irrelevant.
Senator, I was going to give guidance to members at the end of this question, because a number of speeches has arisen. But if you can formulate your question straight away, then that would be helpful.
Yeah, without context, question time can be close to useless, sir, but I've given the context I wanted to there. So my question to the Chief Minister is, would he endeavour, if at all possible, to enlighten us with something relevant that he will pursue as Chief Minister in terms of policy to ensure that the decade after the pandemic is one in which there is an increase in real terms earnings, as opposed to the decade beforehand where there was a freeze? How will he do that, and what detail on policy can he provide us? And if he can keep it to something relevant, that would be great.
So there are 2 points I've made which the centre seems to have forgotten. One is to actually challenge fractionally his assertion about a decade-long freeze. Yes, sir, there have been a significant impact since the financial crisis of 2009, but I believe, sir, actually we are finally nearly back to the 2008 levels. I have to go and check the stats exactly, but actually, sir, there was a real-term increase in earnings in the 12 months to June of last year. Therefore, his assertion is not quite as bleak as he makes it out. The second point I've said, sir, is that whilst we are coming out of a pandemic, we've been putting measures in place to support the number of islanders that we have been doing over the last 12 months. And at its peak, we were assisting 1 in 4 jobs on island. So trying to refute the assertion he's making that essentially we've been doing nothing to support islanders to date. And therefore, by saying that, sir, we have put plans in place that as we come out of it, and this is work that is going on at the moment, to then plan for the future recovery. And that's why I've made several references to the Future Economy Programme, sir, which Centre Farnham is charged with. The financing for that has been approved by members in the government plan of last year. It is spread over 3 years, and in conjunction with that, we are putting fiscal stimulus packages in place, the first phase of which will be announced imminently, sir, and those are all geared to enabling the economy to come out of the economic challenges that have come from the last 12 months, and therefore, sir, by supporting the businesses, we will be supporting the islanders employed by those businesses and supporting their jobs and their earnings. I don't think I can be any clearer than that, sir, i.e. plans are in place and they go through a variety of stages of dealing with what we've been doing through the pandemic, the short-term fiscal stimulus measures and the longer-term economic support. They are all coming together, sir, over the next few months.
Well, thank you, Minister. I will add a minute or two to the question period's injury time, because I wish to give some assistance, I hope, to members. The standing orders require, and for a good reason, that questions and answers are succinct. It also requires that answers are relevant to the question. There is a significant leeway in which the answer of a question can address the question. And of course, the longer the question is, with the more factual material that's put in, the more it invites a correction if the answerer believes the factual material to be wrong to that factual material. I agree that question time can be meaningless unless there is a context to each question, and that applies to supplementary questions. However, that context should be as succinctly stated as possible and should not be used as an opportunity for oratory. I'm making no observations about particular questions, but that it seems to me that that is a feature that is creeping in to question time at the moment. Secondly, the answer should be succinct, and it has become a practice over many years that ministerial answers should not exceed 1 minute 30 seconds, except potentially in extreme circumstances. I have been observing without intervention to see how far we're going along with this, and it is quite clear that ministers are speaking significantly longer on some occasions than 1 minute 30 seconds. And it seems to me that it's incumbent upon members, questioners and answerers alike to be succinct and careful in the way that they put their questions, so that there is a reasonable prospect of canvassing most of the questions on the order paper. I observe that we are now an hour into question time with an hour and 20 minutes left, and we have only covered 5 questions in the 23 or 25 question list. So with those in mind, and I'm not singling anyone out, I'd be grateful if members could do their best to apply standing orders, and I will from now on ensure the 1 minute 30 seconds is strictly kept to, so we can move through as quickly as we may. We come to question 6. The Deputy Doublé will ask the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir.
You can keep it as you.
Is it the Minister's intention to revisit the current position within the gatherings regulations and order, whereby children under the age of 12 are counted towards the number of people considered as taking part in a gathering? If so, when will he do so? And if not, will he explain why?
Minister.
So I'm grateful to the Deputy for raising this point. As set out in my response to written question 81, I've already sought advice from the Medical Officer of Health about exempting children below school age from the gathering limit, which is currently set at 10 people. Recognising that participation in playgroups, such as parent and toddler groups, is very important to the development of children under 5 years of age, as well as being important to their parents' or carers' well-being, I propose exempting under 5s from the gatherings order in the very near future. The fine details are still being worked out, but I will provide them to the Deputy as soon as possible. Thank you.
Supplementary, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for his answer. I'm absolutely delighted to hear that the under 5s will soon be exempted from the gatherings regulations. I think that's critical. And my supplementary question to the Minister is, would he please consider extending this? Following a conversation with experts in the area, I've come to understand that actually under 7 or under 6 more sufficiently covers the early years stage. So would he please consider under 7 or under 6? But more ideally, would he consider under 12s, as other jurisdictions such as Wales and Scotland have done, I think, throughout serious moments in the pandemic, including quite large spikes in case numbers.
Minister.
So we do consider the position of children and the effect of restrictions on them. It is likely that any consideration for children under 12 will be given as part of the reconnection roadmap, and when we release a roadmap shortly, I hope, we will pay special attention to children above 5 who, of course, are at school and still have their connections outside of their immediate households in school and after school clubs where there is no limit to numbers gathering. Thank you, sir.
Minister. Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister able to inform the Assembly of how many children under 12 have actually had COVID locally, and how many of those were under 5? Thank you.
I don't have those figures to hand, sir, but I will get them, assuming they must exist, and I will circulate that to the members, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Alves.
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Would Minister reconsider to include children key stage 1, which is reception year 1 and year 2, with the exception with children under 5, alongside with the statistics that can be produced?
We will certainly give consideration to any suggestions. I think the Deputy is suggesting, rather than a numerical age group, using a key stage of school. I think the particular emphasis here has been on children who are not yet of school age, and understanding the effect of restrictions on them and their parents or carers, where they have not been able to meet up, except in extremely small groups, with others. So a gathering limit of 10 meant that you could have 5 parents and 5 children. If now we say children under 5 are not counted in that, we could have 10 parents bringing along their 10 children. And we think we are at a stage where that is safe to do so, and would avoid the harm that is created by the the isolation and loneliness that might be felt by those families. So that is why we're making this move. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy Gardner?
Yes. When I'm addressing Key Stage 1, we're talking about reception, year 1 and year 2 at children year 4, 5 and 6. Some of them will touch 7. And this is more clear group because they are in bubbles at schools. So would Minister please provide statistics how many of this group of Key Stage 1 had COVID, so we can really decide evidence-based if they can be included or not, what's the risk is there?
Minister.
I think so. We will have a record of the ages of patients with COVID or those tested positive, so that should be possible. So I will attempt to get those details and circulate it with states members, so including those in up to 7 years old, so that's 5, 6, 7, and onwards up to 12 as requested by Deputy Owls, I believe. Thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister outline for us at this point what the additional risk is of not exempting children aged 5 to 12? Sorry, what would the additional risk would be if we did exempt age 5 to 12? Oh, I've just forgotten my other like that. Just that. Thank you, sir.
Minister, what would those?
So I think it is about balancing harms and ensuring that there isn't a spread of COVID that might develop into a cluster and then an outbreak. We know that amongst school children, COVID cases have occurred not so much from children spending time together, but families passing on COVID to the children. That seems to have been in the main what has happened. So it may be that there is not a great deal of risk in children, but of course they already have their social contact within their schools and other daycare settings, including after-school clubs, which are not restricted at all. So their needs are being met there. And it is a balance of trying to keep the rate of infection and the scenarios in which it may spread under control. But we are always looking at mitigating measures, and the roadmap will also address that question in children. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Minister. We come to question 7. The Connétable St Helier will ask the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Connétable.
Thank you, sir. What progress, if any, has the Minister made in implementing the decision of the States Assembly on the 16th of December 2020 in adopting the 10th Amendment to the Government Plan to review the provision of public services by the parishes?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The short answer is that there has been little progress to date. This is due to other pressures on the workload of the Treasury and Exchequer Department, as well as the other departments, particularly Infrastructure, Housing and Environment, that will need to participate in the review. I am aware that this is an important matter and not just for the Connétable. The Comité des Connétables has also written to me to inquire about progress. I last responded to them on the 12th of February. So I am grateful that the States Assembly approved, in the amended 10th Amendment, an expenditure allocation of £50,000 for the department to secure assistance to carry out this review. I have asked the Treasurer to progress this with more urgency once current pressures have abated. I fully expect the Connétable and the Comité to play an active role in the review, beginning with them being consulted on terms of reference when they have been drafted. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, please, sir. I'm grateful to the Minister for her response and her candour. We've now had about a quarter of the time that is available for this review, given that it was to be completed by the end of this year. Is the Minister confident that the timetable she's setting out with her officers can meet this deadline?
So the amendment to the Conitarb's amendment actually removed the specific time deadline for this. If I can just quickly report what the accompanying COM amendment stated. It says that in order for a proper understanding of all of the facts and for all affected parties to have an opportunity to express their views, a thorough review will need to be undertaken. That cannot happen in the timeframe the Conitable has suggested. Therefore, this amendment takes out that deadline. It further says we will commit to the review and will report back on the outcomes in 2021. Thank you, sir.
Very well. That brings us now to question 8 that the Deputy Lehagarah will ask of the Assistant Chief Minister. Deputy Lehagarah.
Thank you, sir. What health services, if any, that are due to be relocated from Overdale to the former Les Canaves School building is it anticipated will not return in their current form on completion of the new hospital?
Assistant Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. In the short time from the States Assembly decision on the 17th of November 2020 for Overdale as the preferred site for the AR Hospital project, the team have worked at a good pace, sir, to find an alternative site announced on the 1st of February for the decancer of the Overdale services. And since then have undertaken 3 sets of clinical user group meetings to consult with the staff in order to design an appropriate facility at Les Canaves for services currently at Overdale. All services will be sorry, sir, I have an echo. All services will be accommodated at the former Les Canaves school buildings other than the pharmacy store, sir, Meals on Wheels and horticulture, which are all still, sir, the location of which are all still a work in progress, with further meetings planned this week. As for the services returning to the new hospital, all those will be accommodated in the new hospital, sir, in due course. Some have asked not to do that, and others will have a split service by design, sir, in line with the new care model and in line with the introduction of more community-facing services, sir. I would like to reassure members and the public, sir, that the new hospital will be the pinnacle, sir, the hub of and the centre, sir, of healthcare in Jersey, and will facilitate the new
healthcare to bring your answer to a close, please.
And future models, sir, into the future. Thank you.
Very much indeed. Supplementary, Deputy?
Yes, please, sir. I'm a little concerned, as are the public. The Minister has said that all services, bar a few of those going to Les Canaves, will be returning. However, this is not shown in the hospital brief. So can he please explain why that the hospital brief doesn't show all the services which are currently at Overdale, which is anticipated to return? Thank you, sir.
So the hospital brief, so I'll have to relook at that. I'm not sure, unless the deputy would like to just perhaps contact me separately to just list those that she is talking about, and then I can provide a response directly, sir. But I refer to my answer, sir, that the vast majority of services going from Overdale to Les Canaves will be going back to the new hospital, sir. That was the question she asked. If she's referring to what services are currently in the total health estate that will not be included or may not be included in the Overdale site, sir, then that needs to be a separate question and we can address that. But I will stipulate, sir, that the new hospital will be the centre, the hub of all health services for Jersey.
Well, Deputy Gardner.
I would like to just give quick, the functional brief compared to what we had in our hospital currently, and I'll just mention a few: a dental department, hospital, hydrotherapy pool, diabetes service, memory assessment service, neurology and neuroscience, and others are not included in the functional brief. Would the Minister confirm that all these services will be allocated somewhere in the community before you finalize the services within the hospital. So we'll not end up building extra buildings around the community without including them in the hospital in the first place.
Assistant Chief Minister.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I would be happier deferring this to the Health Minister in due course, who has responsibility for what actually will happen in the new hospital and what will happen in the community. But I can confirm that certainly, in line with the new healthcare model as approved by the states, we'll either have services based within the new hospital campus with more emphasis on services that can be better delivered and more efficiently delivered within the community, sir. I can't envisage at all any situation where any service provided now will not be fully accommodated in one of those circumstances, sir. And in fact, we hope in the new hospital, sir, which will be an exemplar of modern healthcare, to be able to introduce additional services to those we already offer.
Supplemental, Deputy Gardner.
Yeah, thank you. As a minister who is responsible for the new hospital project, would Minister ensure that we have infrastructure in place in the community, which I'm very doubted out, to accommodate services who will be taken out from the current hospital?
Yes, I just think I can refer to my previous answer. Every health service we have now will be facilitated and the infrastructure will be provided, sir, whether that's in the new hospital campus or within the community. So I can confirm that. Of course, we don't know exactly yet what will be community facing, what will be split services based at the hospital and in the community, and what will move directly to the community. So that's a work in progress, and that's being led by the Health Minister and his team, sir. But I just want to reiterate that all of the services, and hopefully new services, will be included in either the hospital campus or within the community infrastructure.
Well, Senator Moore, and then final supplementary. Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. As the Minister with responsibility for this major project, why does the Minister not have a better handle on the services that will be provided within the future hospital? Deputy Gardner has already highlighted some examples of services that are not identified as returning to the General Hospital in the functional brief.
Thank you, sir. I believe I have, together with the oversight group and all of the team, an excellent handle on the development of the new hospital, sir. What I don't have in front of me is an extensive list of every single service offered, sir. It doesn't relate to the original question asked by Deputy Lehegerar's question. And I believe supplementary should be in line with the original question, was in relation to what services were being transferred to Lequenave and back to Overdale, sir. So yes, we have a full and very good grasp of the project, sir. But if the senator would like to ask a more detailed question, sir, in a future sitting perhaps, or even engage directly with me, sir, outside of the states, we would be very pleased to provide a detailed answer, sir. But with the best will in the world, sir, I'm afraid I don't have the facts in front of me to list every single type of service on offer.
Supplementary, Senator?
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Final supplementary, Deputy Lehegerar.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I mean, this question actually relates to a considerable concern from the general public, who have seen that services are being moved and do not appear to return. And as an example, rehabilitation and the rehabilitation ward theoretically started at Overdale, and then it was only moved to the General Hospital at Gloucester Street as a result of COVID-19. So that service appears to be nowhere. So if the Minister could answer the question in relation to where the rehabilitation or the rehabilitation ward will be located, that would be helpful, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As I've said before, the the final outcome of placement of services, whether they be totally in the new hospital, split service between the hospital and the community, or in the community, sir, is still a work in progress, sir. So I can't answer that presently, but we will provide, as the project develops, as the healthcare model develops, we will be very pleased to answer all of those questions, and I'm sure the Health Minister who leads that aspect of the project will also be able to provide clarifications as the project develops. But I want to reiterate, sir, that every single service that is provided now, sir, will be provided, will have new provisions in the new health estate, sir, the pinnacle of which will be our new hospital. Thank you.
Very much. We come to question 9. The Deputy IA will ask the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy IA.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise the Assembly whether he intends to relax the restrictions on relatives visiting family members in care homes? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Public health guidance for visiting in care homes is reviewed on a 3-weekly basis, taking into account the latest data and island context with respect to COVID-19. An update to the guidance published on the 23rd of February considered feedback from care homes and built on previous guidance to incorporate bespoke advice for visiting in Jersey hospice care. Following the advice of the Deputy Medical Officer of Health, a cautious approach was maintained regarding the number of named visitors recommended and the frequency of visits, allowing any impact of recent increased activity amongst the wider community to be assessed before wider changes in care home guidance are considered. I will be reviewing the need for any further changes to the guidance, for example, considering whether further flexibility can be safely given ahead of the 16th of March, when the next update is due to be published. This will take into consideration key indicators such as detailed vaccination coverage, data amongst care home residents and staff, local COVID activity data, and the latest medical advice from the Deputy Medical Officer of Health, together with further feedback from care homes. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Yes, thank you, sir. The guidance for visiting care homes states that it will be reviewed to ensure it reflects changes to COVID-19 transmission rates in Jersey. With active cases now at 14, is it not time that the Minister allows family members access to their loved ones? Thank you, sir.
It is vitally important, sir, that those in care homes do have the access to their loved ones, do have access to venues outside their care homes that are safe. That is recognised as something that is so important to their well-being and general mental health, and is taken into account, will be taken into account very firmly when the next guidance is released on the 16th of March.
Thank you, sir. And I should declare an interest in having a relative in a care home. Could the Minister explain the logic of the current guidelines, which restrict visitors to, generally speaking, 3 visits a week for 2 named and tested visitors? Why is it not possible, if so preferred, for the care home resident to receive a visit on 6 days a week from a single visitor, duly tested and in a healthy state? I personally cannot see why there is any increase in risk. In fact, I would say there is more of an increase in risk in allowing 2 visitors rather than 1.
It is an interesting question, sir. The issue of trying to balance the risks. So these matters are put before the infection control team and the Deputy Medical Officer of Health. It is largely their guidance which has been pursued. And they decided that that frequency of visits was too great a risk at this moment, and so that has not been included in the guidance. But I undertake to put it again when considering the next review. Thank you, sir.
A supplementary, please, sir. Does the Minister not agree with me that there is no increase in frequency if it is 1 person visiting 6 times than having 2 people visiting 3 times? and that there is surely less risk involved in it being a single visitor.
I can see the argument that the Conotable is putting forward. I don't have the response from infection control or why they might see things differently, but I undertake to put the Conotable's argument in our next discussions.
Final supplementary, Deputy Eye.
Thank you, sir. The guidance mentions that visits to residents who are not fully vaccinated, there is only a maximum of one named visitor per resident. Parents are having to choose who can visit their child, and children are having to decide which one of them can visit their parent. When does the Minister intend to change this prohibitive policy? Thank you, sir.
So that may be changed from the 16th of March if it is deemed safe to do so in terms of controlling the spread and risks of infection from COVID-19. The point made by the Deputy is understood. We will attempt to balance those risks and restore those liberties to care home residents, if at all possible, in the context we find ourselves in. I am sincerely hoping we will be able to make a further relaxation of restrictions at the next review. Thank you, sir.
Minister, we now come to question 10 that Deputy Owls will ask the Chief Minister. Deputy Owls.
Thank you, sir. In light of citizens' panels and juries being set up by the government, will the Chief Minister state how the government will ensure that the people selected to take part in any such panels are representative of the island's population, and that all methods of collecting qualitative and quantitative data from these panels and juries are impartial and follow international best practices for market or social research? Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. There are currently two live products being undertaken, sir, the Jersey Citizens Assembly on Climate Change and Jersey Assisted Dying Citizens Jury. I'm advised that the process of selection involves 2 rounds of random selection on an anonymous basis. In the first round, invites are sent out to a randomly generated list of Jersey addresses with invites for individuals to register in their interest to participate in the process. Relevant demographic and attitudinal information is captured at this stage. In the second round, these expressions of interest are randomly sorted by a specifically designed software program to produce a group of participants who are broadly demographically representative of the island. To undertake this process, the government has engaged the services of the Sortition and Involve Foundations, not-for-profit entities that respectively promote the use of randomly selected groups of people in decision making and also putting people at the heart of decision making. And more information can be found on their respective websites, sir. I hope that's short enough. Thank you, sir.
Much indeed. Supplemental question.
Yes, please, sir. Can the Chief Minister state how he may have looked at the bias that might be introduced by having fixed predetermined days? I think one of them has Thursdays and Saturdays as part of the selection process, especially as people have to attend so many of them in order to be fully involved. Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
I have to say, sir, I'm not cited on that. I do know, sir, that every effort has been made by engaging in this way, that essentially it is as unbiased as is possible, sir. My understanding particularly is that by having a sufficiently wide group from which the random selection is taken is one of the ways that the bias is removed, sir. In terms of days, I suspect the problem there, sir, is that, and this is an opinion, so I will have to go back and verify it, that by picking a working day, as it were, and a weekend day, one's trying to spread the load. I think the same problem can be identified no matter what days of the week are selected, sir, i.e. one's got to make a decision somewhere in there, and it will impact upon whoever cannot make those particular days.
Well, I have questions from Deputy Doublé, Deputy Ward, Deputy Higgins, and then there'll be a final supplementary. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Could the Chief Minister please read out the list of demographic criteria which will be used in sorting and selecting the participants?
Sorry, sir, I was just referring to the list I have. So the criteria used for selecting participants in both examples, sir, and the source data are as follows. Age, the source is the opendata.gov.je 2018 population estimate. Gender, same source. Location, Jersey Opinions and Lifestyle Survey 2020. Socioeconomic status, which is the Jersey Opinions and Lifestyle Survey source. The place of birth, which is the source of the 2011 census data, and some relevant attitudinal questions, which is different sources. The purpose of the attitudinal question is to ensure a broad reflection of different opinions on the relevant topics. I'm very happy for members, if they would wish to quiz in further details for the relevant officers to provide interested members of a briefing if they should wish, sir.
Supplementary, please, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. The criteria that I am interested in, and I believe should be included, especially for the assisted dying consultation, is that of holding a religious belief or a non-religious belief, or indeed no particular beliefs, because that is a characteristic which is especially relevant to that consultation. So I'd be grateful if the Chief Minister could go back to his officers and inquire about that, please.
So I'm very happy to do that and arrange a briefing, sir. As I said, the system has been set up to try and get as randomly selected, but also representative group as possible, sir. I was actually quite impressed when I was given the information, so I hope the Deputy is as well.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Actually, part of my question has partly been answered. I just would like the Minister to confirm that the Sortition Foundation is involved, and it's the same one that helps set up panels around the world. And actually, that form of stratified sampling is quite a robust system. Just to confirm that it is the same Sortition Foundation that was used for the Climate Assembly in the UK and elsewhere. Thank you, sir.
Two answers, sir. One is I agree absolutely with the Deputy in the difficulty pronouncing the title of the organisation, and yes, sir, I can confirm that is the case. So it is a very robust process that's been put in place.
Supplementary to that, Deputy?
No, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister tell members whether the same criteria was used in determining who was going to be on the panel that was reviewing the decision to place the hospital at Overdale? And if not, what criteria was used to set up that panel?
Sir, I would have to go away and identify it. What I do know about the panel that was established was that there was certainly no political involvement, and it was kept as at arm's length as possible in order to avoid influence. But I will happily go away and identify the process that was done. I think it has previously been put into the public domain, sir, but we are testing memory here, sir, but I will go and get information, sir.
Very brief.
Yes.
Very brief one. Could the Chief Minister also check and provide us with the demographics of that panel as well? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, willingly, sir. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. So will the Chief Minister confirm then whether the Sortition Foundation will be involved throughout the whole duration of the existence of these assemblies and juries when they're collecting data and points of view, etc.? Thank you, sir.
So my understanding is the whole point of involvement of Sortition is purely to get the assembly/jury established, sir, that they then don't facilitate or anything along those lines during the deliberations. My understanding is that they are involved in creating the bodies that we're talking about, sir.
Very well. We have come to question 11. The Deputy Taddy will ask the Assistant Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you. Will the Minister advise what consultation, if any, was undertaken with the residents of Llanelwy Park and Clodagh Sub area before the decision was made to relocate Overdale facilities to the old school site?
Yeah, thank you, sir. I'll briefly outline the process and the consultation as it has taken place. As we heard in a previous answer, sir, after the decision to select Overdale as a preferred site, work began to identify suitable locations for the relocation of services currently offered at Overdale. To do this, clinically led options and appraisals were undertaken, which looked at a range of potential locations within the current healthcare services and wider government of Jersey estate, sir. Following this process, a decision was made to relocate by the political oversight group to relocate, and council minister, sir, to relocate the services currently on offer at Overdale to the former Lekenove School in St Brelard, sir. At that time, I personally spoke with the constable and the deputies in an informal conversation just to let them know that that was what was planned, sir. Following the presentation was then made to States members and a public announcement later that day, sir. That same day or the next day, sir, letters were hand-delivered to approximately 230 neighbouring properties of the former school, which informed residents of the relocation decisions, as well as giving them information about the forthcoming community meetings and relevant contact information from the design and delivery partner, sir. Following then the first residents meeting was held on the 18th of February, at which 16 people attended, sir. Those present at the meeting were given a general project update and an introduction of the engagement.
I ask you to bring your answer to an end, please, sir.
Yes, sir. It is quite a bit of information I need to give out, sir, but I'll stop there and hopefully I can address the rest in supplementaries. Thank you.
Very much. Yes, supplemental, Deputy Tony.
Yeah, I thank the Minister for that answer. He could perhaps circulate that written to me. The key point that he's made is that there was no consultation done with residents before the decision was made, and that they simply received a letter informing them that a decision had been made after the fact. Does he think that this is satisfactory? And I do have other questions, sir, but I think that's the first question.
The decision in principle was made, sir. There's still a process to go through, and I'm not sure there was any other way to do it. Once we have made a decision, I can't see consultation, sir, before a favoured site, a favoured option is chosen. Once we've chosen that favoured option, it's far better, sir, than to engage in consultation. Following that, I do understand the deputy's point, and I also understand, sir, that we need to continue to improve the interaction with neighbours, sir. We had a fairly low turnout, sir, and I think the consultants have learnt from that they need to work harder to engage with the parish authorities and the neighbours to get greater attendance, sir. But we're absolutely committed to delivering a proper and detailed consultation process to ensure all neighbours and stakeholders, and indeed any other islanders who wish to participate, can do so. And I would ask islanders wishing to participate to make contact with the project teams, and they can do that very easily through our website and social media, so, or even contacting me or any other members of the political oversight group directly, sir. So whilst I do accept the deputy's criticism, sir, I want to reassure him that the work is underway for a thorough consultation process to take place.
Martin Brelard.
Thank you, sir. And I acknowledge the Minister's comments with regard to consultation with the parish, but would he acknowledge that the correct process might be to consult with the road authority in question, with responsibility for the roads in the area, that being the Parish Roads Committee, sir, because it really is quite crucial, and I suggest that failing to do this will result in people not being able to get to the hospital. So I just ask for his acknowledgement of that, and perhaps to give a positive timeline as to when that might happen. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I do acknowledge that, sir, absolutely, and have asked the project team to do that, sir, and I will come back directly to the constable and the deputy, sir, with an update on the project timeline, sir. We all, I mean, just despite no matter how long we've all been engaged in these kinds of projects, we do continue to learn. So, and I thank the Constable for the guidance that he's given us throughout the project. So I'll undertake to come back to him with a detailed timeline.
Supplemental, Connie Todd.
I thank the Minister for his answer, sir.
I have Senator Pallett and then the final supplementary. Senator Pallett.
Thank you, sir. The Minister used the words "in principle." Has the decision to use Leqembi been decided, or is it still a decision to be made?
No, sir. The decision decided, sir. I say in principle because during the consultation process, or the next phase of work, so in preparation for this, if something untoward was to come up or something that indicated that it wasn't possible, sir, then there might have to be a change of plan. I'm pleased to say that nothing has come up to that effect yet, sir, but we always must prepare for that eventuality. So for the avoidance of doubt, sir, it is very much hope that Leqembi, the former Leqembi school building, will be used, sir, for the relocation of the important services currently on offer at Overdale. So I hope that's clear.
Supplementary, sir.
Yes, indeed.
So it sounds as if the decision's been made. It's a fait accompli. Residents, I'm not sure, sir, what they're actually going to be consulted on because the decision's been made. But could the Minister ensure, or Deputy Chief Minister ensure that that consultation or those that are spoken to are not just those that are immediately in the vicinity of the school, that it's much more broader than that? The impact of such a move of Overdale to this site will have an impact all across the area on a day-to-day basis, far larger than I think the school had when it was situated on the site. So can he ensure that actually the consultation goes much broader than where it's been so far? To only have 16 at a consultation meeting is frankly appalling.
Yes, I can assure the Senator of that. It was disappointing to have 16 when over 230 letters were hand delivered to neighbours, sir, but the team are going to work harder to engage more residents, and not just within the immediate area, but within the parish. And of course, I extend the invitation I made earlier to all islanders who wish to participate to make contact with the project team, sir, via the Our Hospital website. And of course, we will be as inclusive as we need to be, sir, to ensure islanders are properly informed and consulted with.
Final supplementary, Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. I'm surprised to hear that so few letters have gone out. Knowing the area very well, I know that just Leqembi Park and Clos de Sable have over 500 individual residences themselves, and they're the immediate neighbours without considering the other neighbours that are also adjacent. So would the Minister give an undertaking to have an effective consultation, notwithstanding the difficulties provided by the pandemic, perhaps which could be led by those of us who know the area and have represented it for quite a long time, to facilitate his department in that?
Yes, absolutely, sir. I've asked the team to make sure they engage proactively with the parish and the parish representatives. I hope Deputy Truscott and Deputy Tadier will note, sir, that I always try to engage directly with them, and I'll continue to do that. So I think with hindsight, the consultants have realised that it is important to cast a net further. And they're doing that for the next meeting, a resident, which is planned for the 18th of March. So I undertake to myself as well to work with parish deputies and constable to ensure we include as many stakeholders as we possibly can and who want to be involved, sir. Thank you.
Very much. We now come to question 12. The Deputy Ward will ask the Minister for Social Security. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister, the UNCRC committee requires the Government of Jersey to ensure that support provided by way of benefits is adequate. However, where an adult claimant leaves work without good cause, regulations provide for a sanction period of 91 days, during which income support will be paid at a reduced rate. This applies equally where the claimant is a member of a household which includes a child. Does the Minister exercise discretion when the household includes children? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. The income support scheme expects working age adults to take up and remain in work to support themselves and their families as far as possible. Income disregards provide for incentives for claimants to maximise their wages. Financial sanctions are applied if working age adult gives up employment without the appropriate reasons. The sanction removes the adult's component from the claim but does not affect the components to support rental or household components or any child components on that claim. As Minister, I have discretionary powers under the income support law to make payments in exceptional cases. I exercise this power carefully and each case is considered on its own merits. The giving up work without good cause sanction on an adult in the income support claim would not normally constitute exceptional circumstances. It's Articles 26 and 7 of the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child to relate to the financial support for families. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Yes, sir. I mean, having the question repeated back to me didn't really help, but does the Minister not understand that if sanctions are applied to an adult in a family with children, they are equally being applied to a child, and we are made a commitment to the UNCRC and to putting children first? So can I ask the Minister again, does the Minister exercise discretion when the household includes children, or does she just stick to the rule regardless? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. I thought I did answer that. I said in exceptional circumstances I can use discretion. I don't normally use discretion on the giving up work sanction. And to put this in context, we had 183 giving up work sanctions issued in 2020 out of 637 claims. And you know, there are different circumstances. Always speak to the person down at Back to Work and explain why you feel you can't carry on your job. There are reasons, there are exceptions as well that you can leave work, but income support is there to support people, and it is an in-work benefit. Thank you.
Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. The Minister talked about a certain number of cases of giving up work without due cause. How many of those cases was there any children involved in the family grouping?
Yeah, I was reading that and at the same time thinking the same question. I'll have to get back to the Deputy and find that one out. I don't know if that's differentiated. That's the total for 2020, but I will check how many of those families had children. I'm sorry about that. I should have asked for that information prior.
Supplementary, sir, if I may.
Yes, Deputy.
Thank you. And in how many cases involving children or not did the Minister use discretion to relieve relief of some of the sanction over the 90 days?
Again, I'd have to check that, but because there's different sanctions of giving up work and actually not looking for work. And as I say, I do have discretion to make payments. I haven't got that number at the top of my head, but it's not. It wouldn't be many.
Final supplementary, Deputy Ward.
Yes, sir. Forgive me. I just wanted a clarity to the answer previously. The Minister had this question in advance, and so they had the opportunity to find out the answer. I took from your answer that you do not exercise discretion in these cases because you do not exercise discretion in terms of the sanction for those who leave work, regardless of whether there's children there. Can you confirm with a yes or no whether that's the case, i.e. you do not exercise discretion? Thank you, sir. It's just for clarity.
Yes, if I could just remind you, Deputy, and indeed others, to address through the chair. One doesn't address the Minister.
Sorry,
mentions the Minister. It's all right. It's just a gentle reminder.
It was very difficult to word that question. But anyway, carry on.
Yes, Minister.
I said it would not normally constitute exceptional circumstances, so no, I would not exercise discretion in that case. Thank you.
Come to question 13. The Deputy Morell will ask of the Minister for International Development. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. What actions, if any, is the Minister taking to help people in developing countries gain access to COVID-19 vaccines?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. We're incredibly fortunate that Jersey is in such a promising and positive position with our own vaccination programme. During an unprecedented global health emergency, it is vital that Jersey extends its assistance to countries most in need, distributing the COVID vaccine. We recognise that no one is safe until everyone is safe. Jersey Overseas Aid is currently in touch with the main participants in the COVAX scheme, which aims to distribute at least 1.3 billion vaccine doses to vulnerable populations worldwide, and commissioners are reviewing the most effective way of giving Jersey support to such vaccine sharing schemes. This will be in addition to the 1.5 million COVID-related humanitarian assistance we have already provided to some of the world's poorest and most vulnerable people in the world.
Supplementary, Deputy.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Minister for her response. Could the Minister confirm that from her answer, it sounded as though no action has yet been taken to assist with the COVAX vaccine? And also the WHO recently, in fact yesterday, said that COVAX is correcting the glaring inequity, which has been an unfortunate hallmark of the global vaccine rollout to date. Would the Minister agree with that statement? And can she confirm whether or not we have started helping the COVAX rollout?
So we're currently in negotiation with COVAX, and we are seeing which is the best and most effective way for Jersey to give its aid, whether it's directly with the DEC or whether it's through one of our agencies like UNICEF that we use, and we can get stuff on the ground sometimes incredibly quickly. So we are currently researching that, but it is our intention to very much help in that regard.
And so just quickly, the second part of my question was, does she agree about the glaring inequity of the vaccine rollout, as the WHO said yesterday?
I haven't researched that particular issue. All we can do is to ensure that we have monies and we are putting them in the most effective places. We are, as I say, we made a decision last week in the commissioners' meeting that we need to help and research what COVAX are actually doing and the best way that Jersey Overseas Aid can assist.
Thank you
very much. Very well. We come to question 14. The Deputy Ward will ask for the Minister for the Environment. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what records, if any, are kept by his department of incidences where residential rental properties have failed fire safety standards? And will he provide the number of any such incidences for each of the last 3 years? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Fire safety standards in residential rental properties fall within the scope of the Public Health and Safety Rented Dwellings Law, building control regulations, and those that require fire certificates for houses in multiple occupation. The Rented Dwellings Law and the building control regs are within my remit as Minister of Environment, whether the Fire Precautions Jersey Law 77 requiring fire certificates is responsibility of the Minister for Home Affairs. So records only exist for properties Environmental Health Department know about. This is following the decision of the Assembly to reject the register of such properties to enable the minimum standards. So those properties comprise of registered lodging houses and rented dwellings that came to their attention through either complaint or applications to join the voluntary rent safe scheme. In the past 3 years, environmental health officers have carried out over 3,300 inspections, including 272 registered lodging houses with multiple rented dwellings, and dealt with 491 tenant complaints related to minimum standards under that law. This has resulted in the issue of 74 notices listing multiple hazards which are prescribed within the order. Where officers have any fire safety concerns, they will work with the fire service and issue heat detectors. There have been less than 15 cases.
Answer to a
crucial point, sir. There have been less than 15 cases where they have been issued. There's a lot of information to get across, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Well, Deputy Ward, supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Minister for his answer, which was detailed. Can I gain from that? So I asked the Minister that we are looking at really a snapshot there, and if you extrapolate across all rental properties, we could have an issue of much more a much bigger problem in terms of fire safety standards, unless we have some form of formal licensing system.
So I think the Deputy is right. There's no question fire safety is crucial importance. I'm very confident that the part of our laws that deal with building bylaws, which set the standards for the construction of new buildings and amendments to buildings, is in a very good shape to ensure that those works do make sure fire safety. However, that law doesn't deal with pre-existing buildings that don't comply with bylaws. Frankly, we introduced that law, the residential properties law, to achieve minimum standards, and frankly I've been very, very disappointed that we weren't able to persuade the Assembly of the benefits of having a registration, a licensing system to help us follow up. So we are having to respond to complaints, sir, and I think the level of complaint does seem to be pretty consistent. Last information was the CAB in 2018, about 128 cases for various hazards, including fire risks, sir.
Very much. Senator Beswick.
Thank you, sir. And it follows on from the last part of the Minister's answer just then. Could he tell the Assembly whether he is of the view that without the licensing scheme which he proposed earlier, that there is every likelihood or possibility that there are people out there living in conditions which are unsafe, which his officers currently do not have the tools they need to identify that and then do something about it?
So I think the situation is that the law that was passed by the Assembly in 2018 did provide powers for a register for the purposes of to ensure the safety of rented dwellings and health and safety of persons occupying such dwellings. Having brought forward and had several debates, of course the Assembly knows I wasn't able to persuade the Assembly that we had such a need, so therefore we use what we have. I can say there is a gap. When I attended the British Irish Council meeting this week, on the question, I discovered that several jurisdictions have such a register in place and have introduced it because they see this as a problem. And I think this is something where I'm determined that this will have to be put right at some point. It may have to wait until there's an Assembly that's prepared to adopt those regulations in the future, but nonetheless, the officers will carry on doing their best without it.
Supplementary, please, sir.
Yes, Senator.
Yeah, I just want to push the Minister for a more direct answer to how I phrased my question, which is about the possibilities of people out there living in conditions that are unsafe, which we don't know about and that we can't do anything about without that information. So can he confirm that not having the licensing scheme in place poses a greater risk than is necessary to the health and safety of renters out there, and that rectifying that problem by introducing the licensing scheme would enable him to make people safer, which I know is what he desperately wants to do?
So I'm going to try and measure my words clearly. The purpose of the law and the purpose of bringing forward regulations for a register was to enable us to do what the law requires. had that been approved, we would have been in a much better way to be able to be sure and confident that there were no such circumstances. At the moment, I can't have that confidence, that same level of confidence, without that register, because properties may not be up to date, we may not know about them, but where we do know about them or we get complaints, these are definitely followed up and dealt with, sir.
Deputy Tadier, and then final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Where there has been a fire in a rented property and there has been a fire report, is it the case that it is shared with tenants of the property, and if not, why not?
Well, sir, I think I think there is an overlap here, a very important overlap, because as I've said in my answer, the environmental health team work with the Minister for Home Affairs, who is the absolute expert. The experts that we've got with environmental health and building control about the structure of buildings. When fire actually happens, obviously that is a matter of investigation, which I'm sure our fire service people do. I can't answer that, sir. I will undertake to find out from the Minister of Home Affairs, and it seems to be sensible that it should, but I have to make inquiries about that, sir. Thank you.
Supplemental, Deputy?
No, thank you.
Deputy Ward, final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Well, the Minister really has answered as far as, to be quite frank, he could. And I would just like to thank you for his answer. I don't have a supplementary, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed. We come to question 15. The Deputy Higgins will ask for the Minister for Social Security. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise members what discretion, if any, she has with regard to the management and cancellation of debts owed by income support recipients due to overpayments, including in which circumstances this discretion has been or may be exercised?
Thank you, sir. Oh, sorry, sir. I have exercised discretion for overpayments that are recoverable. It is essential for the fairness of this tax-funded benefit system that households are asked to repay benefits in situations where they are paid more than they were entitled to. According to this principle, officers will seek recovery to recover all payments of income support overpayments. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Yes.
I'd like to know if the Minister has actually exercised the discretion herself rather than delegated to officers, and whether she has exercised discretion when it is the department's own fault that led to the overpayments, which is causing the income recipients hardship at the present time.
I did clearly say the first sentence, I have not exercised discretion for overpayments that are recoverable, and all payments while people are receiving income support are recoverable. Many of the overpayments are a few £100s in a month, and they are paid back straight away. And that's the answer, sir.
Very well. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister, given that some of these overpayments are from 3 or 4, even further years ago, where the Social Security budget has already been spent and accounted for, and the repayments may go on for years. I mean, I have people I have tried to help whose repayments were going on to 2030. Is there not a situation where discretion would mean that people's lives would be improved, and actually that money has already been spent or recovered? And why are we taking so long to recover that money?
Well, the Deputy says, why are we taking so long to recover that money? Because we do look at the family circumstance, we look at the individual circumstances, and often we ask people to pay back the rate of £3 a day. The problem being, the Deputy Higgins will see in the answer to his written question, outstanding in 2020, it's a rolling debt admittedly, is 3.78 million. And is the Deputy saying I should write this off? This is more than I would even get to uprate the components where Deputy Southern wants them to be.
Supplementary, sir?
Yes.
Is it not the case that if a department is that far out in terms of its payments consistently, that we need to have a major overhaul of the system, because people are being having their incomes at the lowest incomes stretched away from, taken away from them over such a long stretch of time that actually they're trapped in a cycle of poverty because of an overpayment that was not their fault.
Well, the deputy says the overpayment was not their fault. That's not always the case. We pay income support in advance, completely different to universal credit, where you have to wait a month and borrow your own money and sign up to a repayment scheme before you even got a penny. I can't explain it anymore, that people have had the money, and if it is sometimes if people haven't informed us of changes of different circumstances in their household, these monies add up to, sometimes a few £1,000s. And that's why we have the discretion to take it back at very small amounts. Thank you.
Deputy Southern, then final supplementary. Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, not muted. Yes, sir. Is it not the fact that if you're carrying £3 million of owed money, some of which has been created as overpaid because of the departmental mistake, should you not be encouraging more efficiency in your department by saying that will be lost if you don't correctly assess cases in front of you?
Again, the deputy says that the department is not correctly assessing. The department is correctly assessing on the information supplied by the income support family. Now, if this is a week, a month or a few months out, and the department makes the overpayment, again, because it's always paid in advance. It's not rocket science. We all know what the components are and then the disregards, but it does depend on people telling people if circumstances change in that household. Has somebody moved in? Has somebody started work? Are you doing more hours? And then that's when the overpayments appear. And as I say, the majority of overpayments are paid back that week because the person has earned the £200. They don't need the £200 from income support.
Supplementary, if I may, sir.
Yes, Deputy.
Does the Minister have an assessment of how many of these overpayments are due to departmental error and how many due to client error?
I don't, because I'd have to go back through every single case. That's also in Deputy Higgins' written question. But as I say, the department is very good. It's in income support. They assess the claims on the information they are given. Then the claim will be changed on the information given. So the majority of people must inform income support when circumstances change. And I'm sorry if that really makes a deputy cross, but that is what it is.
Deputy Ells, I'm afraid I'd already called final supplementary question when I indicated there was Deputy Southern still to ask. So Deputy Higgins, final supplementary.
Sorry,
Deputy Higgins.
Sorry, a notice came up blocking the microphone. Yes, the Minister has accumulated, or the department has accumulated debts at least 2 million in 2016, up to 3.7 million now because of overpayments. Many of those overpayments were by the department, and they will not acknowledge and hide behind the law. Will the Minister not accept that the alternative that these people are faced with, some of them are faced with, is to declare themselves bankrupt, and then the states won't get the money back? Is the Minister prepared to use their discretion and look at these cases and sort out which ones are genuine errors on the part of the department and not penalise the people?
This is not the first time this deputy or other deputies asked me to say if it's an error, and if it's an error on the department, would the Minister look at the discretion and write this off? The only way I can put this is we've all been employed, sir. We've all been paid a wage. And my boss paid me £400 too much in March. And he said to me, keep that because you're very good, but don't tell anybody else either. No, he didn't, sir. He took the £400 straight out of my wages in April. I really don't understand. This is not my money. The overpayments happen at the department, and they only happen on if somebody, the majority, 99% of the time, when the household has not kept up or told the department quick enough that there's been a change in circumstances. Thank you, sir.
And what about the other one?
We come to question 16. The Deputy Alves will ask the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. Are reminders sent to the people taking part in workforce testing, given that such testing is meant to be undertaken at regular intervals? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Sir, islanders who are eligible for workforce testing are required to book in for their first test appointment. Information on this process is provided through the government website. Once registered, the appointment details are provided by email. Following completion of the first appointment, the process is then automated, where follow-up appointments are provided by email, with the timings of follow-up appointments being based on the priority group registration. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Supplemental, Deputy?
Yes, please, sir. Can the Minister state when this automated follow-up testing email system was set up, as I have personally signed up for the workforce testing last year and have not had any follow-up email sent, and I'm also aware of other members of my family and friends who are in the same situation. So could the Minister state when this automatic follow-up appointment system was put into place, please, sir? Thank you.
Yes, Minister. Minister?
So I will endeavour to find out that other information because I don't have it immediately to hand. I suspect it has been a process that has been developed over the months we have been undertaking workforce testing, but I will come back to the Deputy on that.
Very much. Deputy Gardner.
Would Minister advise if it's any active engagement and encouragement from the health services to the industry, such as hospitality retailer, to engage with workforce screening?
Yes, sir, there have been very significant efforts made. So, for example, very recently with the opening of hospitality, our COVID teams were out amongst hospitality venues, encouraging the staff there and the owners of hospitality businesses to encourage their staff to undertake testing. And that will continue as we move through the pandemic and open up other sectors. Our COVID teams will work with sectors to encourage appropriate testing. Thank you.
Supplementary, Deputy Gardner.
Back in 2020, November, December, business owners received an email from the COVID team offering workforce screening for the employees. Since then, reminders didn't arrive to the business owner. Would Minister consider to resend emails to the business owner encouraging to send workforce for screening?
So yes, I will ask the team if we can do that. Whatever encouragement we can give will help, though those workers who did go for testing will by now be receiving follow-up reminders if, as stated, the automated process is working correctly. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Final supplementary, Deputy Alves.
Yes, please, sir. Would the Minister consider looking at an online booking system for tests, given that this automated system, obviously highlighted by myself and Deputy Gardner, isn't working at 100%, And I know that during when I made the appointment over the phone and when I've made the appointment for other people over the phone, things like emails were not taken down. Obviously phone numbers were, but emails weren't. So would the Minister consider looking at an online system for booking tests in order to avoid there not being a follow-up? Thank you, sir.
Well, so we will look at what an online system might remedy. If it is useful and practical to do so, we will certainly consider that. By all means, sir. Thank you.
We come to question 17. The Connétable St Helier will ask of the Minister for Infrastructure. Connétable.
Thank you. Following my oral question on the 30th of June 2020 about the Minister's review of the future of the former police headquarters site in Rouge-Bouillon, and statements during the debate on the government plan regarding the temporary relocation of the Sea Cadets to this site, will the Minister advise the Assembly of the progress on this review?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. As the Constable is aware, sir, Rouge-Bouillon is the operational headquarters, central base, training centre and emergency response equipment store for the Jersey Fire and Emergency Service. Although a number of alternate uses of the site have been proffered, none of these are feasible without relocating these vital facilities. With that in mind, a thorough review has been undertaken by the Justice and Home Affairs Department to determine the optimum location for the Fire and Emergency Service and the Ambulance Service, with the key criteria being the imperative to save lives and the response time. The publication distribution of the island dictates that the facilities should be in St Helier, and a number of alternative sites were considered within or close to town, including Warwick Farm, Belizane, the Limes, and La Colette. However, the review, which has been validated by an external consultant, shows there to be a clear disadvantage and risk to life if the station were to be moved away from its current location. Notwithstanding that, and reorganising this government's commitment to young people, my team are working with education to determine the optimum location for educational establishments in St Helier. That review is intended.
Could I ask you to bring your answer to an end, please?
Coming to an end now, sir. That review is intended to be completed in the near future, after which the two reviews will be compared and a decision taken which best meets their requirements. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Yes, please, sir. When I asked this question last June, the Minister said that the review was shortly to be completed, and he said, and I quote, "As soon as things move forward with the review, the Constable will be the first to know," end quote. This clearly isn't the case, so I wouldn't have to ask a question to the Assembly this morning. How can it be that the Minister has concluded his review with no consultation with the father of the parish, whom he said would be the first to know what was going on?
Minister.
Yep, I said it's close to completing, sir. There are several reviews which are converging, and it will be discussed with the Constable. Also, the Regeneration Steering Group, in first instance, of which the Constable is a member, sir.
Very well. Senator Messick.
Thank you, sir. I guess I just want to bluntly ask what's going to happen to Rouge-Bouillon School. That site being contiguous to it made it obvious that that would be how we would want to support the school, either in expanding or providing it with better facilities. And it strikes me as potentially lost opportunity that could leave that school in a position for years of not knowing what its future is going to be. So just bluntly, what's going to happen to Rouge-Bouillon School?
Well, that's not my decision, sir. That will be part of the review, and will be taken up by the Regeneration Steering Group and the states as a whole.
Dr. Venture, Senator?
Well, yeah, so how long is that going to take? Are we going to face more years of inaction, where a school that desperately needs support to improve its facilities, improve its access to open space, the many young people who go there, how long is it going to take before they get certainty about their future? And is this not going to be another case where we spend years and years talking about this and nobody's prepared to actually take the initiative and make commitments to deliver for that school?
As I've stated, sir, that will be revealed in the reports which are converging. It's also our intention to deliver the best possible solution for the public good concerning both the school strategy and the fire and emergency service. Simultaneous work is also proceeding to find the Sea Cadets a permanent home, but I say this will all come out in the review, sir. I don't have an exact timetable. As soon as it's completed, it will be presented to States members.
We're into the last 2 minutes of injury time. Deputy Ward.
Can I ask the Minister, given his commitment as a Minister to put children first, what does he say to the children, the parents and the staff of Rouge Bouillon who have got inadequate facilities, and it looks like now they will not have any solution to this in any time in the foreseeable future? Can he give them some reassurance that he is actually putting them first?
Absolutely, sir. We're putting the safety of the public first, which also includes children. Whether that's the correct place for a school, not my decision. It will come to fruition in the report, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy, there may be time.
No, sir. I don't think I'll use the time. Thank you, sir.
There may not be time, but Deputy Gardner, you're next.
Thank you, sir. What role, if any, Corporate Assets Management Board that's responsible for decisions on the estates currently playing in the review regarding Rouge Bouillon, and if they engage with parents and schools as stakeholders?
I'm not controlling the reviews myself, sir. The two reviews are taking place simultaneously, and as I say, their reports will be presented to the state, sir.
Well, that ends the period available for questions with notice. We now move on to 3 question periods without notice. The first is for the Minister for External Relations, and the first is Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister update the Assembly concerning the export of fish and shellfish to both Saint-Malo and Granville? And are there any indications that anything could prevent Jersey fishermen from not being able to land their catch at this time?
Thank you, sir, for the question. It is an evolving situation. There were difficulties right at the start of the implementation of the TECA agreement, and there was a period where those problems were alleviated slightly, but it's fair to say over the last number of days difficulties have been encountered again. Some of those difficulties are around produce like whelks and where they are fished from, what categories of waters they are, and the cleaning processes that need to be undertaken. That's certainly those are experiencing those difficulties at Granville. With regard to St Malo is a large port. Our wholesalers using the Normandy Trader, because of course Condor's schedule is much reduced because of COVID, are finding that securing a slot is also a difficulty, but the government is supporting in all of those cases.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister outline how he is engaging with the French authorities to smooth the way on these important matters?
Yes, so there are individual fishermen who have been doing that, but my officials, both in the EU Directorate and in the office in Caen, are speaking directly with officials on the harbour side as well as officials in the region, and I am in communication with political colleagues as well in the region.
Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. In yesterday's JEP, in relation to Jersey's relationship with the dictatorship and human rights abusers in the United Arab Emirates, the minister is quoted as saying, "The government of Jersey continues to believe that opening up new channels through which people can make connections and do business across borders will help to promote the open, democratic and rights-based approach advocated in Jersey." Could the minister confirm and provide the details of at least one occasion where either he or somebody on his behalf has directly advocated an open, democratic and rights-based approach, as he indicated in his quote yesterday?
So the deputy, the senator and I don't agree on this particular issue. I've answered questions in the Assembly and confirmed that both I and, of course, together with UK officials and ministers have discussed issues around human rights, around democracy, with interlocutors in the UAE.
Well, sir, if that's the case, then we don't disagree, and I'm pleased to hear it. I'm simply asking the minister if he can provide details about how he goes about doing that. Does he do it directly himself? Do people do it on his behalf? Does Jersey do it unilaterally, or only when working with other jurisdictions as well? I'd just like to know what it's like in the room when he puts these dictators and human rights abusers that they need to stop being such dictators and human rights abusers.
Well, of course, sir, I don't use the diplomatic language that the senator is using. It is about forming relationships and having open discussions and, of course, comparing and contrasting systems of democracy and human rights legislations. Of course, we follow the UK approach in these matters, which is why we followed them in sanctions and putting human rights abusers on our sanctions list and taking action against them. But of course, I have relationships with individuals, particularly in the UAE, and we have open and frank and discussions.
Thank you, sir. Will the minister consider introducing a ban on scallop dredging by French fishermen within Jersey's 3-mile limit to encourage sustainable fishing? Thank you, sir.
So as the deputy knows, that does not fall within my political remit. That is entirely a matter for the Environment Minister and a decision for him. However, I would just make one comment, and that is that any decisions that the Environment Minister makes under the TECA has to be made in a non-discriminatory manner.
Supplemental, Deputy?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the External Relations Minister, what does he understand will be needed re visas to work in Jersey following Brexit for non-CTA residents, and what costs will these incur? Thank you, sir.
Well, of course, the Deputy knows that that is a matter that falls within the remit of the Home Affairs Minister, and he has answered questions on that matter. He will be aware that there is an alignment with the policy that is to be discussed and voted upon by the Assembly in this sitting, and that is around the 9-month work permit that the Home Affairs Minister will need to issue for EU citizens in a way that wasn't required previously.
Supplementary, Deputy?
Yes, sir. I suppose I was asking as External Relations Minister, given the development of trade ties with other jurisdictions, and I wonder whether the Minister has a clarity as to what that will mean for people coming to work here in terms of their costs as we enter into as well a migration debate?
Well, there's no doubt that the bureaucracy that will be and is being put in place to get these working visas will act as a drag to EU citizens coming to work in Jersey in a way that it hasn't previously. And it would seem to me that we are more likely to see perhaps the increase in the flow of individuals from the CTA, because again, individuals in the CTA will find it more difficult to travel and work and settle in Europe than they did before Brexit. But the restrictions on those coming from the CTA have to be delivered in a non-discriminatory way. That's what the policy levers, which we are discussing in this sitting, are all about.
Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister tell members when the Moneyval evaluation is due to take place?
It's either, and there is some uncertainty of when exactly it will be, but we expect it sometime in 23-24, so probably towards the end of 2023.
And can the Minister tell me, if the island fails to properly investigate fraud in financial service businesses, will that not reflect on our Moneyval evaluation?
There are many factors which the Moneyval evaluators will consider in ensuring and reviewing our compliance with the FATF requirements, one of which, of course, is the appropriate prosecution of money laundering and financing of terrorism offences.
Thank you.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. And apologies to the Minister if I've missed any announcement about this. But with regard to the TECA between the UK and EU, has the Minister received any clarity as to whether Jersey's 3, 6 and 12 mile limits will be measured from the offshore reefs as well as the islands, the offshore reefs being Les Écriaux and Les Manquiers, or is this still a matter to be decided?
So as the Deputy knows, in response to his email, that I confirmed the TECA is a trade agreement and is not and does not change the limits that the Deputy has just referred to, nor does it change the access that is enjoyed currently under the GBA. There are questions being raised, and I think this is what the Deputy is referring to. So let's be clear, the TECA does not deal with sovereignty. The sovereignty of those reefs remain as they were. There are issues around baseline measurements which perhaps need to be addressed in due course, but they are not connected with the TECA. The access in the TECA is the same access that was available under the GBA arrangement. I know that that is not universally liked. I'll use that word.
Sir, I thank the Minister for his response, and apologies for using the term TECA in there, but is the Minister therefore confirming that Jersey's baseline fishing boundaries are measured only from the island of Jersey and do not include the Écriaux and the Manquiers? And if so, what is the Minister doing to try to ensure that those offshore reefs are included as part of the baseline calculation of our fishing boundaries?
So, and at the heart of that question, unfortunately, sir, is a translation of two different things, which I know the JFA have been communicating with the public about. The TECA is a trade agreement and it transfers access that was available under the GBA into the TECA. It does not change any baseline measurements. That has been confirmed by official advice, It has been confirmed to the scrutiny panel and to Council of Ministers. Now, there is, of course, a separate issue, and those baseline limits and those are dealt with separately. There are some historical issues about what zones access was given to. They, of course, have been translated and amended over the years with previous agreements. My understanding is, of course, that the Minister for the Environment would be seeking to work with law officers to see if there were a need to update those baseline measurements, but it's not something that would fall directly within the political remit of the Minister for External Relations.
Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. Given the various problems with the EU and the increasing animosity for offshore centres that we're seeing, would it not be better to set up double taxation agreements with countries within the EU to actually, you know, be able to organise affairs more efficiently and reduce the animosity?
So I make no comment on whether it would reduce the animosity. Of course, it takes two to reach an agreement. We have on numerous previous occasions made suggestions to some member states that we stand ready and available to sign DTAs with them. That particular proposal has not really found traction with many. We are signing DTAs with other countries around the world, but just in slow numbers. I think alongside that, of course, we need to remain engaged directly with Brussels and with member state capitals to explain how the Jersey financial services industry operates and the benefits that it can bring to their community and to Brussels and to the European Union as a whole. But I accept what the Senator is saying, and if parties or member states are willing, we certainly would be willing as well.
Can I suggest that...
I'm sorry, Senator, that brings time available for questions to the Minister for External Relations to an end. The next question period is for the Minister for Health and Social Services and Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, given that 10 people can meet in a restaurant table for 2.5 hours from separate households, what work is being done to enable bands to rehearse of less than 10 people in what could be considered controlled environments, particularly electrified bands where there isn't wind instruments involved? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
So we have been engaging with musicians and those representing them, and a strategy will be brought forward as part of the reconnection that will allow bands to practice, rehearse together in indoor settings. I presume the Deputy is referring to indoor settings. They would be permitted at present to congregate together in an outdoor setting.
A supplementary, sir?
Yes, Deputy.
Can I ask the Minister to really extend that commitment, that engagement to musicians across genres, not just woodwind or wider bands, and to find a way to enable rehearsal indoors, which are controlled, that would be distance by the nature of rehearsal, and to support the well-being of musicians who have been drawn away from their ability to practice together for a long time now, as a matter of urgency, and really work on a way in which this can happen?
Yes, sir, I would be happy to engage. If the Deputy wished to give me the names of people that he wished to contribute, then I will pass those on through the public health team.
Thank you, sir.
Very much. Deputy Gardner.
We currently have very few cases of old variant COVID, which is to be celebrated. As the pandemic adapts to us, we will need to adapt to it. In respect of this, what new measures are being taken to protect the island from the new variant COVID, such as Brazil, South Africa, and others?
So we rely to a significant extent on the measures in the UK, because anyone travelling from South America or Southern Africa, for example, will not arrive in Jersey directly, but will far more likely to come through the UK. So we have been in touch with the UK public health authorities and are very much aware of the restrictions there. If any persons travel on to Jersey, having undertaken their quarantine period in a hotel in the UK, they have to undertake a further period of quarantine and be tested 3 times when arriving in Jersey. So in that way, we believe we are monitoring as closely as we can any risks associated with travel from those areas where concerning variants may arise. Thank you.
Supplementary, Deputy, yes.
Thank you. As it was reported recently, there is an identified case of Brazil variant that skipped through the system in the UK, and there are many, maybe other fews. Would Minister ensure that our borders will continue to be, our border control and testing will be continue to be robust to ensure that new variant will not come to Jersey?
Yes, sir. Our intention is absolutely to maintain a robust and safe border system that does its very best to keep out infection. We pay particular attention to the destinations declared by people, so that if it was declared that time was spent in South Africa or other countries of concern, we would pay particular attention to the isolation of those persons. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Recently, sir, there were appalling reports in the United Kingdom of COVID patients with learning difficulties having do not resuscitate placed on their notes, their medical notes when they were in hospital. I was wondering if the Minister would be able to confirm whether or not such a horrendous practice exists in Jersey, and whether or not, people with learning disabilities would ordinarily have do not resuscitate placed on their medical notes should they be suffering from COVID and in hospitals.
Sir, I don't believe that would be the case. That would ordinarily happen, and I have every confidence that our healthcare staff would engage with the patient concerned and their family, and not simply apply without any sort of discussion, thought or engagement with those who need to be consulted with. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, sir?
Yes, Deputy.
Would the Minister agree that whether or not someone suffers from a learning disability is an irrelevant factor in deciding whether or not they should be resuscitated, regardless of what illness they are suffering from? It is only the level of that illness which comes into account, and not whether or not they suffer from learning disabilities.
I agree with the Deputy, sir. Yes, there's a very precious community of people, and absolutely respect must be paid to them as individuals and their individual needs considered.
Thank you, sir.
Deputy, are you?
Thank you, sir. A government consultation outlined an ambition to go smoke-free in England by 2030. Does the Minister have a similar ambition for Jersey to make smoking tobacco obsolete? Thank you, sir.
That's very interesting, sir. I can't say that I have that ambition, because that English initiative I'm not aware of. 2030 does seem very ambitious. But what it does highlight is the need to improve education around well-being and people taking responsibility for their health. Fortunately, in Jersey, smoking rates have reduced in recent years, though we still have a legacy of quite a high rate of smoking due to, I think, decades ago when the price of a pack of cigarettes was very cheap and very accessible. We are now seeing that reflected in some of the cancer cases that come forward and are dealt with each year. But especially amongst children, cigarette smoking is definitely seen as a no-no, and there's a smaller uptake amongst children and young people, which I hope will continue through into their adult life. I will certainly investigate the English initiative that the Deputy has pointed out and see if it is to happen in the UK, whether we might join in. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Ayo?
Nothing further, sir.
Deputy Tanier.
Thank you. Would the Minister explain whether it's logical and rational that it is possible and legal to sit down for a meal with, say, 8 other people, not from your household, for hours on end, have a 3-course meal with lashings of bottles of wine? But if you want to just have a quick pint in your local pub at a social distance with one friend and for 15 minutes, that's not possible. Does the Minister think that those scenarios are rational?
So it is a difficult task to reconnect our social life and economic life and have a perfectly rational system all the way through, because we have to take things cautiously and in step and monitor each step as we move through the process. So it has been recognised that opening hospitality venues for the purposes of meals, serving meals, which includes cafes, opening cafes, would help people's well-being and mental health, which has taken a severe knock throughout this second wave. And of course, gives a boost to the economy also. So very significant mitigation measures have been put in place, such that, for example, diners in a restaurant must be 2 meters apart from each other. They are there for a limited time. They can only be served alcohol with their meal, not before or after. And these are controlled environments, whereas I noticed the Deputy mentioned going for a pint with a friend at a social distance. The difficulty is, I think, keeping that social distance when all we have is a glass of beer in our hands. Much more difficult to control, but at some stage,
I have to ask you to bring your answer to close, please, Minister.
Thank you, sir.
So supplementary, I'm not sure if that shed much light on it. I'm just concerned we're going to get some really fat alcoholics at the end of this if they have to have a proper meal with every drink that they have. But I think perhaps more seriously, if the Minister is saying that it's to do with mental health issues and economic growth, then surely the same applies to people socialising irrespective of what they drink. And of course, they might just be drinking soft drinks in a pub as well. So can he confirm that this isn't just a thinly veiled puritanical crusade on alcohol, because it clearly doesn't seem to have been well thought out if it is indeed to do with promoting mental health and economic stimulus?
Certainly, sir, it is not that sort of crusade. It is recognised from public health research and data around the world that those sort of environments which we designate as wet pubs, where people can gather together closely, are vectors of spread, and in most jurisdictions are the last to reopen when coming through out of a wave. And Jersey is no different. We adhere to that advice. That is the advice given to us, that these environments are riskier than a restaurant or cafe. And so will be opened at the appropriate time, but not yet. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Sullivan.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister inform members how the new scheme to make affordable and accessible access to GPs is going, and in particular with those cases of chronic multiple morbidity, whether that's being catered for?
Sir, I understand from the Deputy, from the Minister for Social Security, that the scheme has been well received and has had a good take-up. All income support and pension plus recipients have been informed of their entitlement, and GPs are very well aware and are applying the scheme, and it will apply, as the Deputy pointed out, to persons with comorbidities who are within those eligible groups, income support and pension plus. Thank you.
Supplementary, Deputy.
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. The Minister, in his answer to Deputy Gardner, said that he was relying on the UK authorities to monitor people coming from Brazil, etc., and the quarantine arrangement there. Is he going to step up the surveillance of private jets coming into the island? Because we've only had one individual break our arrangements and didn't get tested and went to visit someone else who's arriving the following day. Are we having all our borders checked? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Every private jet that arrives in the island is checked. Those persons have to undertake tests. Those persons are known to us. I'm surprised if the Deputy has just mentioned someone that wasn't known to us and wasn't tested, but if the Deputy wanted to give me details, then we could follow that up. But we certainly don't omit private travel by jets, planes or yachts, and all of that is port, and those passengers are subject to the same restrictions as persons arriving on commercial flights or boats. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Can I just say that the information was contained either in Bailiwick Express or the JEP?
Well, I'm sorry, Deputy, you can't use it for questions if you don't have a supplemental. Deputy Lehegra.
Thank you, sir.
There may be time.
Why have the rules changed in relation to children attending schools in the UK and the need for their quarantine on their return?
It is changed, sir, because it is felt that there was not a justification for exempting them from isolation requirements. Given the severity of the second wave in the UK and the presence of the variants, I think that is the right decision to have made.
Well, I'm afraid that brings the time available for questions to the Minister for Health and Social Services to an end. The next question period is for the Chief Minister, Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister explain why at the last press conference announcing the hospitality mitigation changes, why Dr. Muscat or the Chair of STAC was not in attendance of that press conference? Thank you.
Chief Minister.
Sir, from memory, I think he was having a week off, sir.
Thank you, Chief Minister. So the response really is going forward. Does the Chief Minister not agree that any future announcements that changes the rules in our exit strategy to appear without either Dr. Muscat or somebody relevant does not really help the island in understanding the science and the medical data of the important messages that led to those decisions? Thank you, sir.
So in the ideal world, we do try and appear with either Mr. Muscat or Mr. Armstrong, or Dr. Muscat and Mr. Armstrong. But so there are times when, according to I try and avoid the word operational reasons because usually that's literal, sir, i.e. they are operating or performing some form of medical procedure, or alternative in this instance where they weren't actually available because of the timing of the press conference. Sometimes it's not possible, sir, but if we can do it, sir, we do try and have those individuals with us, as you say, to, or as the Deputy says, sir, to address any of the medical issues that come forward.
Deputy Ash.
Thank you, sir. Could the Chief Minister please confirm if regular updates took place on the government's headquarters accommodation project and with whom?
Thank you, sir. So I just need to find the right piece of paper somewhere around. Yes, sir. The essentially, sir, the strategic outline business case was approved by the Council Ministers, and I'm just grabbing a note, sir, in October 2019, and members were given a briefing in mid-November 2019, and the Corporate Service Scrutiny Panel and the Public Accounts Committee were also briefed in private on that same day, I understand. And certainly, sir, that is confirmed in their scrutiny minutes. And they also confirmed that in the minute of December 19, they would defer consideration of any possible work until it had received, as in the panel received, what's called the SOBC, which is the Strategic Outline Business Case, which was received on the 17th of December 19 and is just under 140 pages, sir. So the point is, that document was delivered to them roughly a week after that minutes. Might have been 2 weeks, but it was certainly in December 2019. Subsequently, sir, there were briefings that were delivered in June 2020, July 2020, and October 2020 to scrutiny. And according to our records, office accommodation papers, as considered by the Council Ministers, were received by scrutiny. And what I'm doing, so I'm actually reading off a letter that was sent to all members on the 25th of February, sir. All papers were sent by scrutiny on the 16th of September 2020, 25th of September 2020, 9th of December 2020, and also the 26th of January 2021. It's been through 2 government plans, sir. In addition, sir, the full business case was sent to scrutiny on the 10th of February. A specific briefing, finally, sir, was provided.
Can I ask you to bring your answer to a close, please?
Was provided on the 3rd of February, sir, of this year to both Corporate and the Public Accounts Committee, and the members, sir, were updated on the 12th of February, sir. So there have been a lot of briefings. We are arranging another one, sir, towards the end of this week or the beginning of next week as well, sir. Thank you.
So can I ask you a quick supplementary?
Of course you can, yes.
Thank you. Could the Chief Minister, in his opinion, obviously, have done anything differently in that updating process?
So I think that falls into 2 areas, and so I think from our point of view, we believe we've engaged as much as humanly possible, sir. And I do actually also look at it from the other perspective, thinking, well, when I was in that position 3.5 years ago, whatever it is, what would I have done? And as a former president of what was then the Chairman's Committee, it is difficult, and we do try and look out scrutiny needs to get its job done, and we all do things differently. But a question I would be anticipating, and if I was still in that position, was why any time in the last 14 months I'd not appointed advisors to advise the panel on this, to do a desktop exercise, for example, on all the paperwork, to proactively challenge and or validate the claim savings, etc., and then to run through the numbers and the individual details as provided to scrutiny once they've been through the Council Ministers. That would have been a different approach from that end, sir, and would have avoided delays when one gets to this stage of the project. But that's really all I can see, is that would there have been scope to have got that procedure in place at an earlier point? I hope that helps, sir.
Point of order. Do you want to raise a point of order, Deputy Haggaroth?
Yes, sir, and forgive me if I should actually know the answer to this. This is a very short opportunity for members to ask questions within a 15-minute spell. Opportunities for backbenchers, etc., for those that do not have the opportunity at other times to ask questions. Is it therefore appropriate, sir, that an Assistant Treasury Minister is asking questions of the Chief Minister, which are clearly scripted for him to have a full and open answer? Thank you, sir.
The answer to that is that it is not, generally speaking, appropriate for well, ministers are not to ask questions of other ministers. Their own assistant ministers are not to ask questions of those ministers. There is nothing to prevent an assistant minister who is not linked to the minister answering questions to ask a question. That's within standing orders, and that's within the normal policies of the Assembly. Whether it is appropriate and whether it is the right thing to do and the right use of question time, that I'm afraid is a political issue which would need to be raised with BBC and dealt with in that manner. But I understand the point that you raise. Deputy Aye.
Thank you, sir. Since many businesses have announced their intention to reduce their office space by up to 40%, will the Chief Minister consider re-evaluating his office accommodation project? Thank you, sir.
Sir, just to make 2 points, and I'm reading again from the letter that was sent to scrutiny, sir. In terms of the documentation that's been provided to scrutiny previously, and this is not a scripted answer, but I will still refer to the letter I've sent out. The scrutiny panel was given, I understand, the updated documentation that was done in relation to the COVID-19 review of the office accommodation. From memory, sir, I believe that was in around September, October, sir. And on that basis, we have done a review and the project still stands. I do emphasise, sir, that there are different opinions as to where office accommodation is going. And that's the point I was also making, sir. That's why it's useful to have advisors going through on side, as it were, and in hand to give advice on this. But in essence, sir, the reduction in office accommodation, we are roughly reducing our accommodation by between 40 and 50% as a result of this scheme. So essentially, sir, if we don't do it, we will be hugely over accommodating than what we should be doing, and the benefits to the taxpayer of 7 million a year would be lost. What I can also stress, sir, is that we are going down to approximately 6 buildings is the intention, as members have been informed previously, and therefore, sir, there is still some flexibility if the result of COVID-19 is even more challenging than what we expect. But equally, sir, some of the...
I have to ask you to bring your answer to
apologies, sir. Yes. So the point is, sir, we've done the work and it's been provided to scrutiny, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Aye?
No, thank you, sir.
That was amazing.
Thanks, sir. Could the Chief Minister offer us an explanation as to how it is that a profit-making private sector developer can somehow offer to build a government office on a government-owned site for a better value for money arrangement than the government's own government-owned developer?
Sir, the centre is aware of a lot of the details because he's been party to the papers and the decision making that was made around that time. Equally, sir, the members were also briefed publicly, sir. We have said that the process was that the 2 highest scoring tenderers were the ones that came through to the shortlist. It was a very, very thorough evaluation process, and the nub of it, sir, is that the entity that Senator Messick is referring to could not provide a building that was big enough, basically, for our requirements within the timeframes that we were requiring, sir. It was an open process, it was fair competition, and in this instance, they did not get into the final 2 highest scoring positions, sir.
Supplementary, sir.
Yes.
What lessons has the Chief Minister learnt from the PFI experience in the UK, where when what appear to be similar arrangements have been used in the past that come with all sorts of add-ons in the contracts, maintenance costs and the rest of it, which have been widely regarded even by right-wing Conservative chancellors as being bad value for money? How does he justify going with a private sector arrangement when none of those things would apply if we used our own government developer?
Sir, this is a straightforward contractual arrangement to build a building and then for either us to buy it at the end or to lease it. It is not a PFI set up where the building would be managed, sir, for example, by the developer that has been suggested. Any contractual arrangement, sir, will be absolutely, I think I'm allowed to use the term, bog standard tenant-landlord relationships if we went down that line. And as I said, the scheme is designed to give the flexibility, sir, taking account of the financing issues
we're dealing with in COVID. I make the point, sir, that if we fail to do this, we will be foregoing yet again approximately £7 million a year at least, because that excludes productivity savings from the point of view of the taxpayer. And if we do nothing, sir, whatever the price is that we've been talking about, it will cost £30 million more to do nothing, because that is the state of the infrastructure that our staff are having to work in. So it is not, sir, a PFI. And again, sir, the Senator is mixing up his facts, I'm afraid.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Given that this is all questions without notice on the order paper, can I ask the Chief Minister directly, was he given notice of the question from his party, Councillor Minister colleague, in advance of this, and could therefore provide such a detailed answer?
So the answer is straight off the letter that was sent to members. I have a host of paperwork around me covering different subjects, including, sir, the previous question that Senator Mesic asked me some time ago, and indeed, sir, from the anticipated question for the oral question that Deputy Southern wasn't able to ask me, sir. So I have a variety of questions, and interesting enough, I was anticipating some questions from the on the office strategy, sir. And sir, equally, sir, anybody is entitled to ask any questions, provided it is not a fellow minister or one of my assistant ministers.
Thank you, sir. So therefore, can the minister confirm that he did not have prior sight to that question?
Sir, I'm not going to go down that line, and the reason I'm not going to go down that line is because at various times I get told by certain members at points I might be going to ask you a question on such and such a subject. I also do some question spotting, sir, and so to answer a question in the positive or the negative on this one would then prejudice any future people who sometimes want to give me advance warning depending on the technical nature of that question. And sir, I would make the point, sir, that the same could also be applied to any question from any party member to any member of their ministers who were in the executive at that point, sir, and that's never been asked.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Would the minister be able to update the Assembly as to the progress of the integrated technology platform project? Specifically, is it still on time and is it on budget as agreed in the 2021 government plan? Thank you, sir.
Sir, it is still on time, sir. And in fact, I believe we are, well, sir, sorry, sir, we are close, I believe, to announcements being made in that area. And sir, in terms of budget, I would have to come back to the member exactly where we are. I know there's been some iterations in there, partially due to the COVID pandemic, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. So is the Chief Minister able to confirm whether or not the budget, I believe it is about £40 million for the integrated technology platform, is the same as agreed in the government plan? Thank you, sir.
Sir, I'll need to come back to the member on the details of that. As I said, the focus I've been on is the delivery of it, because again, sir, the failure not to deliver it will leave us in a very dire state. But I will come back to the Deputy with the details in due course, sir.
It's about 1 minute for question period still to go, but you have a point of order, Deputy Ward.
So yes, I'm not sure how this works. I was just wondering what a ruling is on questions without notice, whether as chair, if you believe that they have been given in advance, then it negates the question without notice as a principle.
Well, the short answer is that there is no way that the presiding officer can know whether questions being notice have been given in advance without being told. I really can't make any other observation than that. It's not for me to form a view if one person says one thing and one person says something else as to what the outcome should be. That's a matter on which members, I think, have to form their own view. And the consequences, if they do not accept the explanation that's been given by the answerer, are political consequences, it seems to me.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Very much. Very well. I'll allow 1 minute more of injury time then in that case to cover that particular point of order. And that leaves Deputy Higgins. You have about a minute to ask your question and try and get an answer.
A very quick question. I ask every month the Chief Minister what progress has been made on bringing back to the States by the end of this year the digital register for commercial and residential properties, and who is leading it? Thank you.
So very quickly, in my last response, I said it was all going to be play for the end of Q1. I believe that is still the progress, and if it isn't, I will update the member in due course, but I believe that is still on track, sir.
Very much indeed, and that does bring the time available for questions to an end. It is now 12:50. Is the adjournment proposed?
Yes, sir.
Very well, the Assembly stands adjourned until 2:15.